Hello, everyone. I'm Chris, and I come back to you now at the turn of the tide to give my live reaction to The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. What's this thing called? Main teaser. This is from Prime Video. We've already got Carl in there. He's more punctual than I am. So good to see you again, Carl. Yeah, I mean, this trailer went up about, I think it was like 8 hours ago, is it right now? Probably 9, actually, close to now. The point is, the trailer went up earlier today. I've been at work, so unfortunately, I couldn't jump on for this trailer immediately. So I've had it to look forward to all day. So I'm going to be giving my live opinions on it. I'm going to give people a few minutes to sort of, jump in perhaps, or, just to get comfy, get acquainted. And then I'm going to be sharing the screen so you guys can see the trailer at home, and you might pick up bits of the audio because, like, my mic's there. It's going to happen. Okay, so before we start this thing, I'm going to do a quick blast of the socials. I do encourage you, please, to subscribe to the channel for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams. I need to enunciate my words more. Yeah, it's, whenever something comes out that I feel passionate about or I want to talk about, I will do just that. So that's why you're kind of getting this impromptu video. Of course, you can also follow me on Twitter at Hobbit Fan Editor. There I'll post all the times that I'm going live, as well as whatever takes my fancy throughout the week, whatever it happens to be. So give me a follow on there. Why not? And of course, well, I don't know if you guys have seen the trailer already. Maybe you guys have been waiting to watch this live reaction as well. I guess I should bring this up at the end. Let me know what you think of the Rings of Power trailer, because I ain't watched it yet, so I don't know what I think of it. But I can tell you what I think of everything else that's come out about this so far. In that I think it's just a complete bastardization of the life's work of one John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. I'm a massive Tolkien fan. As you can probably tell from my room, this is not a poser thing. I'm not doing this just for the camera to show everything I've got in the background. The Lord of the Rings and Tolkien and the entire collective works of Tolkien is my life's blood. It is the thing that I am most passionate about in my life, without a shadow of a doubt. The storytelling is timeless, and I'm a massive fan. Peter Jackson's films, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, are among, well, they are my favorite films of all time. I think they're an absolute crowning achievement in cinema history. The phrase gets thrown around a lot, lightning in a bottle, when those films were made, the circumstances they were made in, the sort of the perfect blend between practical effects and, building things and models and costumes and props, and also kind of not so much the infancy of CGI, but certainly seeing CGI to that scale. It had absolutely been unheard of, unseen of, and they were making up a lot of things that would completely revolutionize the movie making landscape as to what we have it today. Absolutely groundbreaking films. I watched them actually recently. I think, one each week. I was showing someone who hadn't seen them in a long, long time. 20 years on, they still completely hold up, and they are, I think they're the crowning achievement in movie making history. The fact that all three of those films were made at the same time is just, I'm currently going through the appendices again, actually, and it's just wonderful to see. And even though they're explaining in kind of infinitesimal detail the level of craft and artistry that went into those films and sheer amounts of planning, it's mind-boggling how they actually still got it done and how good it looks. So a massive Lord of the Rings fan. The Hobbit films, not so much. I appreciate them for what they are and the very different circumstances that Peter Jackson was under. Are there a lot of problems with that trilogy? Damn right there is. But I've corrected some of them, so go and check out my Hobbit fan edit. You can find it in the description down below. It won't take you to a Rickroll link. There you can actually find the proper link where you can find my edit. And then we get to the Rings of Power. Now, I want to stress before I go into my thoughts on this, and, maybe I should save them for during and after the trailer, and I'll probably do that because, I don't want a massively long-winded intro before getting to the trailer proper, is that there's always room for adaptation. Even before Peter Jackson's films weren't the first adaptations in terms of film of Tolkien's works. You've got weird kind of avant-garde Russian Hobbit short films that were made. Of course, you've got the Rankin and Bass and Ralph Bakshi Hobbit and Lord of the Rings films that came out. It's kind of nice, actually, that, you know, Lord of the Rings kind of started out very much in animation, and, you know, hopefully, which will cleanse the palate after the Rings of Power. I mean, it could still be bad. I don't know, just from what I've seen so far. But of course, Warner Brothers are working on their War of the Rohirrim, I think it's called, isn't it? The anime they're working on. And when I initially heard that, like, Lord of the Rings in an anime, like, how's that going to work? Like, it doesn't really seem like the medium to do it. Certainly not after we've seen what can be done with live action with Peter Jackson's trilogy. The more I've seen from it and the concept art, and, you know, of course, they've announced the voice cast for it as well. You've got Brian Cox playing Helm Hammerhand. You've got Miranda Otto returning, in which I expect is probably going to be some kind of voiceover work, because Eowyn wasn't around during that time. And the concept art and everything, it looks wonderful. So the fingers crossed. I really hope it's good, because then when I sat down and thought about it more, I think actually animation and anime could be actually a very, very good way to adapt Tolkien. I don't know if anyone will ever get the rights to it, but certainly the Silmarillion is so biblical in scope and some of the events that happen that I actually think that would be kind of synonymous with animation, because you'd have that complete free reign, and, you know, you wouldn't have the confines of, you know, a budget for, say, like a live action film, or, you know, the organization and logistics of getting something together for that. But the Rings of Power, literally everything, the majority of everything that's come out for this has been just completely abhorrent to me from a Lord of the Rings lore standpoint, the greater Tolkien lore standpoint. From everything, I honestly, I think the only positive thing that I've seen so far, the first image that came out, actually, with what I assume is Galadriel looking at the two trees of Valinor, Laurelin and Telperion in the background. That looked, as an opening image, I thought, wow, I'm actually on board for this thing. Like, I was shocked. I was like, we're getting some first age stuff here, because I didn't think they had the rights to that. And then as it's come out, I actually don't think that Amazon really have many rights to things to adapt for this. I think they can adapt the second age material and anything in the appendices of the Lord of the Rings, as far as I'm aware, and that's it. And obviously the greater detail of, certainly, you know, the year of the trees, you know, the year of the lamps, the year of the trees, the first age, the second age, the grand wealth of information from that comes from the Silmarillion, which they actually don't have the rights to. It's just whatever scant few lines, to my understanding anyway, it's the scant few sentences and whatnot in the Lord of the Rings appendices, and that's really the only stuff that they can adapt. But we've seen it already from, you know, the massive condensing of timelines. And I know that Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings film did that. You know, I'm not going to say it didn't. The film kind of glosses over that there's meant to be like a 17-year time gap between Gandalf leaving the Shire and then returning to tell Frodo about the ring. You know, that's 17 years in the book. It's a long time. Of course, the book's much more sprawling and has, you know, much more of a wealth of information in it than the films can. But with this one, it, you know, with Peter Jackson doing that, it felt like it was for the sake of adaptation, whereas I'm just kind of scratching my head as to, like you've got 5 seasons. Apparently, they've confirmed that they're doing 5 seasons of the Rings of Power. You've got time. You know, you don't have to keep jumping around or condensing timelines and characters meeting characters that they didn't in the lore, and just the way they're going about handling things. It's very 2022 in terms of our current media, in terms of their depiction of Middle-earth and the races of Middle-earth and everything like that. And I just don't think that's right. You know, it's kind of they're putting modernity into it. You know, they're putting modern 2022 politics and agendas into something that is so far removed from that, and was just written as an English mythology, heavily steeped in Germanic and Norse mythology, and was written as pure fantasy escapism. That's all it was written for. It wasn't meant to be allegorical. It wasn't meant to be, you know, putting all of your, you know, your baggage into this. It's meant to be removed from that. It's this secondary world that Tolkien created. And there's a brilliant quote here, which I was going to read actually after the trailer, because I'm guessing how the trailer is going to go down. You know, if the trailer does win me over on my pre-existing opinion, then power to it. But this is a direct quote from Peter Jackson as he was making the Lord of the Rings films. And I believe this is from the appendices. You can find it. Quote, "We made a promise to ourselves at the beginning of the process that we weren't going to put any of our own politics, our own messages, or our own themes into these movies. What we were trying to do was to analyze what was important to Tolkien and to try and honor that. In a way, we were trying to make these films for him, not for ourselves." And my God, within that time from, how those films were handled to now, it's night and day, And the last thing I'll say is as well, I don't want to go on too much of a tirade because I'm going to probably save that until after the trailer. The marketing for this thing has been absolutely diabolical. The trailers getting ratioed, if you can download an extension for the dislike ratio on these trailers, there's hope yet. There's some Tolkien fans out there. I didn't type it, but, every comment more or less when the teaser trailer came out was the quote from the Silmarillion where it was like, evil cannot create, it can only corrupt and destroy, or whatever it is. The quote from the Silmarillion. And it was just wall to wall in like as many different languages as you can think of. So that kind of gave me hope a little bit. And then they did that super fans video, and what the fuck were they thinking? It was so bad. In fact, obviously it got ratioed again. Amazon kind of pulled that video, didn't they? Just how edited and crafted and scripted that felt like. They didn't feel like super fans of Tolkien, because in my opinion, now, I'm not speaking for every Tolkien fan here. Like, obviously, if you enjoy The Lord of the Rings, if you enjoy Tolkien and you're really looking forward to the Rings of Power and you think it looks good and you're on board for it, then hey, I'm not going to change your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion as well. I think some people forget that people are entitled to their own opinion. And if you disagree with me during the course of this reaction, then by all means, I'm prepared to have an adult conversation about it in the comment section or indeed the live chat. But just be respectful of other people's opinions, but yeah, that Superfans video was just absolutely atrocious. I couldn't believe what I was watching. The people clearly hadn't read the books. They knew nothing about Tolkien, like the stuff they were talking about. They were, the characters like Sauron, they were going like, oh my God, but I can change him. He's just misunderstood. I'm like, no, he is like, it's really frustrating. I've given my preamble. That being said, I'm not really overjoyed about pretty much anything. Honestly, the only thing that I think looks halfway decent, as I mentioned, was that opening image. Like Valinor looked really nice, and the two trees looked really good. Is kind of how I imagined it to look actually from the source material, and the picture they released not too long ago of the costumes of the orcs. Great that we've got orcs in costume. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. I'm just trying to just Carl here referring to the Superman video was embarrassing. How did Amazon believe that would win the fans over? Exactly. Like, and this is the thing, like, people have said to me like, oh, how do you know, Chris, you haven't seen the show yet? And that criticism always kind of makes me laugh, because in that case, what is the point and purpose of trailers, of articles, of superfan videos, of, everything in between? That is your marketing. That is the stuff that you are meant to watch. You're meant to process and go, do I like this product or not? That is what you have to go on. So me saying, I think this looks terrible, that's a fair criticism based on all the, I was going to say merchandise, all of the marketing that's come out for this thing. And yeah, that Superfan video was a distinct low point. It was absolutely laughable. Got ratioed to hell and back. And Christ almighty, yeah, it was awful. Some of the stuff they were saying was just, it's like, you clearly haven't read the books. You don't know anything about the lore. So just stop talking. It's like that, Aslan quote from the Chronicles of Narnia. It's like, do not cite the deep magic to me, which I was there when it was written. Now, granted, I'm not old enough to be there when it was written, but it's, you know what I mean? And I think what's also kind of heartbreaking to me is to see, I get why they do it. I like to think that I've got more substance about me. If I've got an opinion, I stick to my guns unless, someone presents me with a case to change my opinion, which I'm always open to. But where you've got so many shills that have been emerging, and of course you get it. You got it with Star Wars when the sequel trilogy was around. You still get it now with Star Wars, actually. You've got all of these sort of like prolific Tolkien lore channels that I've been subscribed to for years, and honestly glean most of my information from those channels. They're impeccably researched and edited and put across, and I live and breathe this shit. The works of Tolkien is my greatest escapism. I always kind of think about all of the novels and the wonderful stories of this world that I'll never read, purely because Tolkien is it for me. That's like the beginning and end for me. It's very much like a Bible to me in many ways. And indeed, the Silmarillion kind of reads like one. It was intended to be one, actually. But yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, just these shills, they get invited, all expenses paid, flight to London to have a special glimpse at the TV show. Of course, they're not going to say anything bad about it. And why would you? If a company has paid for you to go over there, they're not going to accept for you to say negative things about it. And indeed, we've been saying that, we've been seeing that now. I'm the victim of that. My opinion didn't coalesce with the message. So you kind of kick to the curb. So I get why these channels that are, boasting, 500,000 subscribers, considerable 1,000 subscribers, they're going to want to try and keep the peace, aren't they? They're going to want to try and be political between everyone. They're going to want to be neutral and sit on the fence because they don't want to piss off one group of people and they don't want to piss off another group of people. And if they keep it vague enough, then they withhold all of the subscribers, don't they? Whereas I'm like, I'm going to give my opinion. I'm here to give my honest opinion. I don't pull any punches. I don't show any fakeness. I'm not just going to say positive things about this thing just to try and get an early screener from Amazon Prime. I couldn't give a shit if I do get an early screener for something or not. It's great if I do. If not, then hey, it's all good. I'm just here to give my own opinion, And if you agree with it, fantastic. If you don't agree with it, then as long as you're willing to have an adult conversation about it, it's all good. Anyway, I've been talking for 20 minutes and I haven't even talked about the trailer yet. So, shall we get to the trailer? Maybe we shouldn't, but let's do it. So, I'm going to be on the big screen because, I've got to be center of attention. I don't know. I'm going to sound off in the comments. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer the trailer to be big and me to be small? Or because it's a reaction, do you want me to be big and the trailer to be small? I'll let you people decide before I dive into this thing. And dive into it I shall, believe me. Or I guess we've got one person watching. So, Carl, which do you prefer, my friend? I'm going to get a drink of water. I will be full screening the trailer, by the way. So the trailer's going to occupy that box, but just let me know. I'll give you until 19 minutes, and then we'll start the trailer together. But I don't know. Like, I'm going to pass it over to you guys. Like, what have you been thinking of the marketing so far? Have you think it's been very good? I'm actually surprised they left it this long for a trailer. In all honesty, we're kind of a month and a half away, and we've only seen like a quick little teaser trailer and some downright embarrassing superfan videos. That's been about it, really. Okay, right. That being said, well, I'm going to keep it on this screen anyway. So if someone says they prefer it the other way, it's too late, goddammit. So, okay, right. Let's get the volume up. Again, you might hear like a bit of the audio played back. Large trailer larger. Okay. There we go. Okay. Caught it just in the nick of time. Right. Okay, with that all being said, here we go. The main teaser trailer. Let's do it.
There was a time when the world was so young.
I'm sorry, guys. It's really, really juddering on here. It's probably my internet, so I'm gonna actually have to drop it to a disgusting 480p, I'm afraid. So, okay, sorry. 3, 2, 1, go.
There was a time when the world was so young.
Oh, kind of getting the Rivendell theme coming through.
In a sunrise, but even then. There was light.
See, that looks nice. That looks nice. The speakers are fine, It's a good depiction of Valinor.
Come to me, lands far away.
Elves have forests to protect. Dwarfs their minds. Men their fields of grain. But we Harfoots have each other. We're safe.
Here we go. Oh yeah, based on the works of Tolkien. You fucking wiped your ass with his material.
Put up your sword.
The enemy is still out there. The question now is where?
It is over.
You have not seen what I've seen.
I have seen my share.
It's like the short hair on the elves. Like what the hell? See,
What I have seen.
I've seen that picture there. I'm trying to think what that could be. It just looks very clean, doesn't it? It doesn't look very gritty. It looks very...
It will be the end, not just of our people, but all.
Miriel. Okay. Alright.
I am sorry, but their time has come.
See, he looks like a dwarf.
The past
He looks
is
like
with
a
us
dwarf.
all. The past is dead.
You either move forward
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to,
or
right?
die with it.
This could be the beginning of a new era.
Is that a warg? Oh yeah, the Comet Man. Like Hobbits shouldn't even be a thing. Hobbits weren't even around in the Second Age. But okay. Okay. There we go. That was the trailer. I just realized I've closed the sharing off, but I do actually want to share it again because we're going to be going through this trailer bit by bit. I promised myself that I wouldn't this time because last time I did one of these things, I went for like two and a half hours on a 30-second trailer. This is a 2.5 minute trailer, so God knows how long I'll be going on this one. Probably not too long, but I mean, it's a better trailer than the first one. I suppose, but more or less everything from this is wrong to the point where, you know, I'm going to be throwing suggestions like, oh, is this scene the part from the Silmarillion where this happened? And is this, but they're doing their own thing with this. You know, it says based on the works of Tolkien. It's so very, very lightly based on the works of Tolkien. You've got characters with the same names. You've got place names, but they are just fucking doing their own thing with this. This is not a depiction of the Second Age. There are so many elements about this that they're wrong. Let's talk about the look of it. I mean, this is Numenor right here.
The world was so young.
I think this is probably just before the shot that we see from the first trailer where we sort of like... I think the first trailer you saw that sort of like giant statue, didn't you? Leading into like the harbour. At Numenor. At least I imagine that's where it is. You know, I'm just guessing, of course. I mean, this looks fine. You know, it looks fine. I wish they'd have kind of added a little bit of digital grain to it, though, because it does look kind of very washed out and fakey in some parts. I think that's probably to do with the lighting. And, you know, you kind of had the same thing with the Hobbit films as well, being shot on digital. But yeah, I'm getting kind of just... I'm still kind of getting Narnia vibes from this. Like, in all honesty, if you didn't tell me this was Lord of the Rings or Middle-earth, I probably wouldn't know. It looks like a kind of mishmash of Game of Thrones and Narnia to me, even still. And I guess that's kind of right because, you know, this probably wouldn't exist without Game of Thrones. You know, it seems like Game of Thrones is finished now, so every TV studio is trying to fill that fantasy TV show void. Game of Thrones itself is, of course, coming back this year for House of the Dragon, which, woo, get hyped for that prequel show. I don't know why anyone would, considering how Game of Thrones ended. Like, what's the point? I mean, you've got that. But we've seen what Amazon did with The Wheel of Time. And yeah, I guess I'll just leave it there. Anyway, let's continue with this. Let's continue. I mean, as a shot, you know, as a conceptual design, this doesn't look bad. It looks fine.
So young.
You know, this is Galadriel. This could even be a continuation of the shot where she's talking about looking at the two trees of Valinor, which is actually, you know, lore accurate. Galadriel was there when she saw the two trees. Carl says I'm getting Star Wars prequel vibes. I guess in terms of like the digital quality, but even still, I'll contest. I think Phantom Menace looks phenomenal. It's only really Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith where I'm like, okay, this looks very digital and CGI heavy now. But Phantom Menace, I honestly think, has the best blend of practical and CGI, and I think that still holds up way better than the visuals in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Not to say the visuals are necessarily bad in Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. Some have great visuals. There are some scenes with pretty bad ones. But I don't know. I think we've kind of come around to the Star Wars prequels a lot more now, haven't we? I don't know if I'll come around to this because, as I say, everything's just kind of wrong. So we've got like the Rivendell theme kicking in there. Now I know that Howard Shore's coming back to do the score. So maybe we will get moments like that, you know, coming through in the scores, you know, familiar motifs and everything like that. So if for nothing else, we know that the soundtrack's going to sound great. And, you know, most of the visuals look okay, I suppose, in this trailer from what I just saw, but it's more just like the actual content of the show. And the way it's handled the lore and the races of the world and sort of like the geography of the world. We'll get into that, though. We'll get into that. So let's continue.
There had not yet been a sunrise. But even then, there was...
Okay, so there we let me back it up a little bit so it's more in focus. Laurelin and Telperion, right there. I mean, we saw that from the picture anyway, but that's more of a close-up that we've got of those two. I mean, as visuals go, I think that looks really nice. That's kind of how I imagined it to be from the Silmarillion when I read it, in all honesty. I think depicting anything from the Year of the Trees or indeed anything from the Silmarillion is very, very difficult to do. Valinor is this very heavenly, paradise-like place, and I think that you're going to struggle to adapt that in any way in live action. But, I mean, as speakers, I find this is pretty good. It's pretty good. I can imagine a giant Ungoliant sucking the life out of those two trees. You know, so as a still, this is the thing, like, I think this show, and maybe this is kind of what you're getting at here, Carl, with the Star Wars prequel vibes, is that it's going to be very much style over substance. I think it's going to be very glossy. It's going to be very glitzy. I think visually it's going to look pretty damn good, although I still think it looks very fakey fake in this trailer in a lot of parts, which we'll get to. But you're not really going to have any of the grit, you know, that kind of was Lord of the Rings. It looks very light. It looks like low-calorie Middle-earth. Oh, what am I talking about? Anyway, let's continue. Let's continue. Why not?
There was light.
Prime Video. Oh, that's a surefire way of quality right there, isn't it? So we've got here. I mean, I know that, well, for season 1 at least, I know that they filmed it in New Zealand. So, I mean, this looks like New Zealand landscape. Our speakers are fine. It looks like Middle-earth. What do we think? Is this a race of men right here? This is interesting. So they kind of look like, well, I mean, they're dressed in snow gear, so I'm assuming that this is like a continuation of the clip that we've seen of Xena Warrior Princess Galadriel, Joan of Arc Galadriel climbing a frozen wall, Game of Thrones style, in complete plate mail, which is just absolutely ridiculous because that's not really climbing garb, is it? Let's be honest. So I think this is a continuation of that. We've got the people in like the similar kind of outfits, and we've got snowy mountains. Visually, I mean, this could be the Misty Mountains, but again, like I want to say it's Galadriel crossing the Helcaraxe, which we know that she did when she left Valinor and, you know, moved into Middle-earth. She crossed the grinding ice that was the Helcaraxe, which is such a cool name. I love saying it. It's a really, really cool name. But you know, Amazon are just going, fuck it, we'll do whatever. We're not necessarily adapting everything you know from the book. So here's me coming at it from, you know, a fan of the novels, you know, a fan of the source material and the lore. And it's just a stab in the dark. I'm going from what I know and from what's canonical and what's been established, and they're doing their own thing. So everything that I say right now is just pure conjecture. Let's continue. But, you know, again, like landscape wise, it looks nice. Looks nice. See, I'm looking at this here, and you know, with sort of like these grounds, I'm guessing this is the Misty Mountains, actually. Are they called the Pinnacles? Is that, am I remembering that right? Is that the name of the location from New Zealand? The reason is that I don't think it's the Helcaraxe is that the Helcaraxe is literally like an Arctic tundra. It's grinding ice, it's icebergs, it's, you know, everything like that. So maybe it isn't. Maybe that's just elves, you know, crossing over the Misty Mountains to dungeons deep and caverns old. I don't. So let's continue. So this is the kingdom of Linden. I want to say we've seen this in previous trailers with you know, the High King Gil-Galad. I mean, again, it looks fine. It actually looks like elven architect. Like, I look at this and go, that's elven. So, you know, positive. I'm pretty sure this is. I don't think this is like the House of Elrond. You know, I don't even think that came about until the Third Age. Actually, did it? The House of Elrond? I'm not sure. I need to consult the lore again, but pretty sure this is Linden. We've seen this in the previous trailers and everything with the yellow trees and everything. So again, it looks nice. The visuals are okay.
To protect. Dwarfs their minds.
Okay, so I think they said that this is Moria back in its heyday, I think, didn't they? I think one of the original pitch lines when this was first being a thing was that we were going to see from the elves of Linden to across the seas in Numenor and the caverns of Moria, I believe they said, or Khazad-dûm. So yeah, this is Khazad-dûm. Looks dwarven. Fair enough. Okay, speakers are fine.
Fields of grain.
Men their fields of grain. So, you know, this could be, I guess, is it Eriador, maybe? Or I know that we're going to see some of like the early forms of Rohan, which again is that they're fucking around with the timeline with this thing, with like Aeol the Young. I don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know. But, you know, it's men toiling in a field in a very nice landscape. So, sure, why not?
But we Harfoots have each other.
And then we've got the Half-Foots. I mean, here we go. This is our first, well, it's not our first lore break, is it? Let's be honest, but it's a prominent one. The fact that hobbits are even in this, whether they be Fallahide, whether they be Stores, or whether they be Half-Foots, it's all wrong. Hobbits didn't come about until the Third Age of the world. No one had heard of them, which is, you know, part of the themes of Tolkien itself is, you know, even in the films, they say even the smallest person can change the course of the future. No one's heard of hobbits. Hobbits just kind of emerged out of holes sometime in the Third Age. And of course, they went on to like change the whole fate of Middle Earth, didn't they? The fact that hobbits are in this is just because Amazon are going, we're making a Lord of the Rings show. We can't do Lord of the Rings without hobbits, so we want hobbits in our show. The source material be damned. There is no reason that hobbits need to be in this. And of course, the Half-Foots, you know, they've taken the description of that Tolkien had of Half-Foots and they've just ran with it. And now we've got like a multicultural, diverse race of hobbits, which I'm sorry, just isn't in the lore. It just isn't. And we're seeing that, you know, with the elves and the dwarves too. And I'm just coming at it purely from, you know, I've got nothing against the actors at all. I'm just coming from this as a fan of the lore and the source material. You know, if you want a show that, you know, you want to be as diverse as possible, you know, all of these things, if that's like one of your box tick that you absolutely require from your TV show, the thing is Tolkien outlined all the races. Middle-earth is a very multicultural world. It is, you know, fundamentally all of the races are accounted for, but you know, they kind of have their place in the lore and they have their provinces. And, you know, if you wanted that, this show had so much, there's so much potential with this show to show us stuff that even Tolkien didn't write about all that much. With the context of the show, they are going to have to be making up a lot of their own stuff because, you know, granted, Tolkien did write a lot about the Second Age, more so about the First Age. But the Second Age, you know, of course, there is material there. But with how, when you look at the Silmarillion, the time jumps that you get, you know, it could skip 1,000 years pretty much in a sentence or two. There's not much sort of spoken dialogue, so of course a lot of the dialogue you are going to have to write from whole cloth. So of course there is room to, you know, we've probably got to create characters, and, you know, we've got to create things that necessarily weren't talked about. But one of the things that wasn't talked about all that much were the lands of Rhûn, of Khand, you know, of the Southrons, you know, the Haradrim and the Easterlings, the Corsairs of Umbar. Of course, they're mentioned. The Woses as well, the Druidain. There's so many races in Middle Earth that you could show. If you want to be diverse, let's see those lands to the east. Let's see those lands to the south. I've always been fascinated by the Haradrim and the Easterlings, and, you know, you get glimpses of them in the Lord of the Rings, of course, you know, the ones, you know, piloting the Oliphants, and, you know, the Easterlings, you see them marching into the Black Gate in the Two Towers, and you see them on the battlefield as well in some of the background shots of Return of the King. They're really cool and they're fascinating, and they've got a fascinating culture. The Blue Wizards, for example, two of the members of the five wizards of the Astari, both sort of like migrated into the East, and not much was written about the Blue Wizards. So if this was going to be a very fan fiction-y show, you could still acknowledge the lore and stay true to the lore without just doing what they've done, you know, with the hobbits and the dwarves and the elves, because to me it just breaks the lore. It confuses the geography. Tolkien was very meticulous with the creation of his world, that when you start to think about it now, it just breaks the geography of everything to me and kind of disrupts the world building. And the thing is, if you've got a problem with that, like that's how it was written, then guess what? Don't fucking adapt Tolkien. This isn't Game of Thrones, you know. Game of Thrones' world and its world building and its cultures and its diversity is completely different to what Tolkien wrote with The Lord of the Rings. It's just the way it was written. And, you know, Peter Jackson acknowledged that with the films between The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and stayed true to that lore. And no one had a fucking problem. You know, this is what gets me. All of a sudden it's a problem. But Lord of the Rings wins all the Oscars. Everyone adores those films. You know, critically acclaimed, a story that's captured millions, that people still today, 20 years on, are discovering and having an emotional connection to and love it because it's escapism. They can get wrapped up in it. There are themes of, you know, racism and diversity and cultures who initially against each other and coming together. All of the, you know, heroism as well, you know, with Eowyn's character, for example, in a world that's really you know, Tolkien's world is patriarchal, like it or not. That's the way that the fucking lore is, which is why it's such a massive deal, because Tolkien did write some really strong female characters. Galadriel's one of the strongest people in Middle Earth. You've got Melian, the Maya from the Silmarillion. You've got Luthien, who stands toe-to-toe with Morgoth, who is the ultimate Dark Lord, and sings him into a sleep and lulls him into a sleep and is infinitely courageous. You know, Arwen as well, who is, you know, showed strength in different ways, you know, the feminine strength. And we'll get onto that when we get onto Xena Warrior Princess Joan of Arc Galadriel, which completely misses the point of Galadriel's character and why she's so strong in the first place, in my opinion, and kind of in many ways does a disservice to the character. But Eowyn is like the best example to go to for this stuff, right? Lord of the Rings, the world of Middle Earth is patriarchal. It has all, you know, as Éomer says in Return of the King, war is the province of men, Eowyn, which is why it's such a massive deal when Eowyn steps up. I am no man, which is an incredible moment. Merry needs some credit as well, because Merry stabs the Witch King with the barrow knives, which takes the magical, you know, which lowers, I guess, the Witch King's power threshold, magic threshold, and then, you know, Eowyn gets that killing blow. it's a huge moment for the character, and indeed, you know, it kind of completes her character arc after that moment, doesn't it? That she's always wanted to step up and be a shield maiden. The, you know, political nature and the gender conformity and everything at the time disallowed her from doing this, and then she finally gets that moment, and it's great. So now with this being a prequel series, and I know that you might say that it's kind of doing its own thing, but essentially it's telling the second age, which would lead into the third age, which would be the, you know, the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. We've got multicultural hobbits, we've got multicultural dwarves and elves. So somewhere between the second age and the third age, there was a massive racial cull, apparently, between all of these races, and you know, women doing battle and leading cavalry charges. There was a massive sexism sweep across Middle-earth, which disallowed women from doing battle, which leads us into the Lord of the Rings. It doesn't make sense at all, you know. And I just feel like there's so many ways that they could have showed like strong female characters and this diversity in a way that stays true to the lore. And, you know, some people can view what I'm saying and go like, oh, you know, this guy's a racist. I hope you don't think I'm a racist here, because what I'm saying, I'm just coming at this from a lore standpoint. I'm just saying you could have all of these things and all of these box ticks and everything that the show, that Amazon clearly want for its audience, and from what we've seen from the Superfan video. But you could have done it in a way that stays true to the themes of the story and the lore and the geography and, you know, essentially what the lore is and how Tolkien wrote it. And if you don't like it and you feel like you need to modernize it for a 2022 audience with all of these agendas, then guess what? Don't fucking adapt Tolkien. Simple as that. I mean, that's my opinion, you know, and that's what I stated last time on my live stream that unfortunately you'll never see. Anyway, we've got a comment here from Nikki Cunningham. Says, all of the franchises I think we are most protective of the all the franchises I think we are most protective of the Tolkien story. Absolutely. What the fuck? Sorry, not what the fuck. What the hell happened to Ungoliant? Well, I think Ungoliant was consumed by the light, wasn't she? And was she fled. She fled, didn't she, into something Gortheb. I forgot the name. It's a really cool place, and then it was forever like a place of darkness. And there, Ungoliant had children and like spider spawn. You know, obviously the main one of her children is Shelob, the spider that we see in Return of the King, is directly the child of Ungoliant. And then indeed the spiders that we see in the Mirkwood Forest in The Hobbit are the children of Shelob. So good old Ungoliant's a grandmammy, which is great. But I want to come back to that comment you just mentioned there of all the franchises I think we are most protective of the Tolkien story. Absolutely. And in all honesty, I think the reason that we are is because we've seen it with so many franchises now at this point. You know, franchises that I used to once hold near and dear to my heart. Chief among them, the Star Wars sequel, well, just Star Wars in general at the moment. We've seen what happens, the divide that it creates in the fan base. If you don't like this character, if you don't like this film, you're a misogynist, you're a racist, you know, and you then get cancelled, because cancel culture is a fucking cancer that needs to be eradicated because it's laughable. You know, it's so dictatorial. It's like their way or the highway. And, you know, opposing opinions and adult conversation about it is not had anymore. You just kind of shouted that you're a racist, that you're a misogynist, and if you're not part of the message, if you're not part of the, you know, you got to get on the woke train, and if you're not part of that train, then we don't want to know you now. You're not a fan. You're not a true fan because you don't accept product. You know, applaud, clap, you know, consume product and then wait for next product. That's what Star Wars has become now. And not just Star Wars, but loads of franchises. But Disney are the worst for it. Especially, you know, how many people with the character of Reva, right? You know, people were saying they don't like the character. They think that the acting is kind of obnoxious, how she plays the character. The writing for the character is terrible. It's not a good arc. She's not a well-written, you know, it's not a well-written redemption arc, and she's kind of two-dimensional as a villain. All, you know, legitimate criticisms against the acting and against how the character is written, right? people having those criticisms going, Disney saying, we don't, you're not part of this group, you're a racist. If you don't like this character just because she's played by a black female, regardless of what you think of the writing and how she's actually acting, you're a racist. And we saw this everywhere. I think even Disney took to their Twitter to announce this. And it's, now I'm not, obviously there may have been some people that did level racist remarks towards the actress, and I don't agree with those at all. And that's absolutely not on, and that's absolutely abhorrent that people would do that. And I'm not saying that people didn't do that. I don't condone that behavior one iota, but legitimate criticism towards that character and the acting is completely valid. I'm part of a bunch of Lord of the Rings groups on my personal Facebook. And, of course, they were posting about this trailer today and people going, I'm sick and tired of people complaining about this. It's Lord of the Rings. Just like it, just enjoy it. And it's that mentality of, oh, just because it's got the Lord of the Rings name on there, I'm just meant to eat it up like Eowyn stew, just like absolute slop, consume products just because it's Lord of the Rings. And it's like, no, I'm allowed to have, if I've got legitimate criticism, if I think that this looks very un-Tolkien, if this betrays the themes and the world that Tolkien created, if it's going so far off the rails doing its own thing, if it doesn't look good, if visually, conceptually it doesn't look good, I'm entitled to those opinions, and that's valid criticism. So if I have valid criticism, am I just complaining? Am I just moaning? Am I just not getting on board with this and should just like it, just be passive and just enjoy it just because it's Lord of the Rings? Absolutely not. We've seen Lord of the Rings be adapted. We've seen it be adapted well. Peter Jackson's trilogy. This isn't a good adaptation. So therefore, I'm allowed to say that I don't think this is a good adaptation, I'm not a massive fan of Star Trek personally, but another example is Star Trek with all of, like the woke agenda coming into it, completely betraying kind of what Star Trek, the fundamentals of Star Trek and the energy of Star Trek and what Star Trek meant and everything. With Picard and Discovery, and that's basically what I've been picking up on for, Red Letter Media did a video on it, right, with Mike Stacklasa, where he said that he finds that, Star Trek The Next Generation was the thing that he was most passionate about. And from watching Discovery and from watching Picard, it's killed his love of Star Trek now. And it was really sad. It was like a part of his soul had died. And he said that he finds now that he can't even go back and watch The Next Generation because he's just checked out now. He's done. And that's how I feel with Star Wars. And that's why you guys didn't get a review on Kenobi. Reviewers that I trust, I watched highlight reels of all of the episodes of deconstructing it and why it's completely terrible. It's why I don't really talk about Star Wars any much now, is that Star Wars is a dead franchise to me now. I get no hope. I don't get fired up about it. I don't get any enjoyment out of talking about it anymore. Disney have kind of killed my love of Star Wars. And I've just come to accept that. The MCU is kind of going in the same direction now. It's just getting absolute laughable. I've kind of, again, why you haven't got a review for Moon Knight, not Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, why I haven't done trailer reactions to She-Hulk or reviews on Thor Love and Thunder. After Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness, which was fucking terrible, I'm just done. Because you're just seeing that wokeness in just on everything. They can't gone like good characterizations and storytelling now. Now it's just about, let's make a product that can appeal to a given demographic just to sell the product, and it gone a good storytelling and characterization. Or in many cases, it's let's take those icons that we had with, Iron Man and Hulk and Thor and Captain America, and let's just tear them down and just make them a laughing stock now, which is not on. So, my love of the MCU is kind of dwindling, and I don't even know if I'll watch Thor Ragnarok, Thor Love and Thunder, because I just don't care. I really just don't care anymore, and I'd rather use my time to actually watch stuff that I care about. I don't even want to watch this show, but I feel like I owe it to you guys. And as someone who's a fan of Tolkien and just, the evolution of adaptation or devolution in the case of this adaptation, it's still important in the grander scheme of things to sort of, view it. And then hopefully by the time we get to the War for the Rohirrim, we'll be able to compare and contrast, and hopefully Warner Brothers actually pull it out the bag this time, because I really genuinely want that to be good. Nikki says feminine strength and masculine strength are two different things, both very powerful, both very necessary. Hollywood doesn't understand real feminine strength, so they lazily just transform women into men. I couldn't have said it better myself. And when we continue the trailer, we'll get to those, hero shots of Joan of Arc Galadriel. I can't say it better than that. You've absolutely hit the nail on the head. And I think honestly, that's why everyone's been so, I think that's why everyone's loved Top Gun Maverick, because it was just no bullshit, no holds barred, good, solid action film with, did the characters justice, didn't tear them down, didn't make them a miserable laughingstock of what they were, like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, as an example, or Picard in Picard. Yeah, and feminine strength, and that's the thing. Tolkien wrote feminine strength so well in a society that he wrote it where it was, it was very, it was a patriarchal society by design. There is still immense feminine strength to that. The sheer love of like Aragorn and Arwen, for example, and how supportive Arwen is and how devoted she is. Devotion is a strength in many ways, and Melian, the Maya, for God's sake, the girdle of Melian when she creates the the magical barrier around her kingdom. She's a mother. She gives good counsel. She's a leader of people. She's a queen, for God's sake. She's regal. She's not of this earth. She's a Maya. She's on the same power level as like Gandalf and Sauron and the Balrogs. She's immensely powerful. Galadriel, Christ almighty, let me count the ways. Galadriel, easily one of the most powerful people in Middle-earth, ruler of her own kingdom, didn't like the confines of Valinor and, wanted to depart Middle-earth to create her own kingdom. Ambitious, devoted wife to Celeborn, which, Celeborn's just going to get absolutely cooked in this show because they're going to dial up the power of Galadriel because she's a strong feminine woman's character. And although she's married to Celeborn, Celeborn's just going to take a back seat. Celeborn got stuck in all like the battles and everything like that. Galadriel didn't, but that doesn't take away from her feminine strength. When you watch The Lord of the Rings and they enter the woods of Lothlorien, and there's this really mysterious, enigmatic quality to those woods, and they really like build up to the reveal of Galadriel in that. Of course, her commanding voice, as I believe Tolkien quotes in The Fellowship of the Ring, lower than a woman's want, that power, that profundity to that prologue and that voiceover, which, I love the prologue of The Fellowship of the Ring. It's fantastic, beautifully narrated by Cate Blanchett. When she descends those stairs hand in hand with Celeborn, you're just taken in with this otherworldly quality. The way they filmed it as well in the detail, the fact that they had fairy lights rigged up where you could see the twinkle of the fairy lights in the reflections of her eyes because they wanted to show that she has seen the light of Valinor, of the two trees, and that she kind of carries that light with her. They're kind of glowing, they're otherworldly. And the power that she has and commanding presence instantly from her opening scene in Lord of the Rings. She doesn't have to strap on a fucking suit of armor. She doesn't have to have a broadsword or lead a cavalry charge into battle. You get that strength from her. She's, immensely powerful in magic, in council. She's a member of the White Council, for God's sake. In open discussion with Maiar, with, Gandalf and Saruman. Well respected, gives great counsel. And is so important to the quest of the ring and, indeed the history of Middle-earth. Feminine qualities. Remember those? Now she's got to be a man. Now we've literally... Oh, my God. And the posters and the character art they've released for this has just been downright laughable. It's like, let's get Galadriel, right? I can't back this up. I'm going to... Hang on. Let me have a room rearrange. I'm sorry, guys, of what you're about to see. I have got pants on, by the way, so don't worry. The pose where she's like full on man spreading, right? And she's got the dagger and it's hanging down between her crotch like a fucking dick. And she's in this full on like man spread mode, which, I mean, I don't know why a woman would man spread like that, because isn't the whole point of man spreading, like in like a kind of crude way, is that you are letting the the jewels hang down. It's like, this is my power, this is my manly strength, like, you know, my posture kind of thing. And they've got her in that pose, like hunched over like a dude, and I'm like, no, this is, how is this Galadriel? How would you look at this and go, this is, you know, this is a good, fair way to adapt Galadriel's character? To me, that does a disservice to women. I think, you know, women shouldn't be afraid of their feminine quality, you know, that feminine power. It's a strength in and of itself, as indeed masculine strength is. And, you know, I really hope after we've had Top Gun Maverick that we do get more of that. You know, people, modern terminology will just call it toxic masculinity, which it isn't. Like, are there examples of toxic masculinity? Absolutely there is. Just because I want Maverick to be really cool and inspirational, like, is that toxic masculinity? No, because he shows signs of weakness in that. And then again, you have feminine strength as well with Penny's character in that, where she consoles him, she, you know, kind of gives him the pep talk, emotionally builds him up, and it makes $1.2 billion at the box office. Who'd have thunk it? Nikki says, don't ask questions, just consume product and then get excited for next product. The nerd crew. Exactly. And that's where I took it from as well. But it's so true. It's, you can really just kind of hold a mirror up now to the current media consuming public, and it's, you don't even need to do a satire on it. Just hold the mirror up to them, and, you know, they'll make fun of themselves. Nikki says that she's a Trekkie, and it is true, they've ruined it for us. And here's the thing, like, you know, I mean, I'm nothing against Trekkies. I just haven't got into it. Maybe I will go through the original series at some point in Next Generation. But for me with Star Wars, I'm kind of at a point now, even if a really good Star Wars film came out, would I care? And I don't know the answer to that question. If a director came along with a genuine vision and Disney just would fuck off and die, and you know, no agenda politics in it, and it was just a really fucking good return to form Star Wars film, genuinely good, like on the tier of like the original trilogy, would I care? And I don't know the answer to that question now, because my love of, and it pains me to say, if you'd have asked, you know, 2015 me when that first trailer came out for Force Awakens, and, you know, along with everyone, I was over the moon. Of course it was. It had been so many years since we'd had a Star Wars film. I'm conscious of the fact that we're only 37 seconds into this trailer, by the way, so maybe I should get back to the trailer again in a second. I feel like I'm Mola right now, like every frame a pause. But I promise it's not going to be like a 5-hour video, guys. But this is a this is a really genuine, good conversation. So I want to stay on and talk with you guys. This is brilliant. You know, 2015 me with Star Wars, I was all over it. Lord of the Rings and Star Wars were like, if I was going to do like a Mount Rushmore of franchises that I was into and things I was most passionate about in life, it was Lord of the Rings and it was Star Wars, pretty much neck and neck, from the fantasy genre and from the, you know, the science fiction or science fantasy genre of Star Wars. And it just kills me that I don't care about it now. And I almost can't imagine that I'm the same person. I'm not the same person anymore. I'm a guy who's gone through the sequel trilogy and being burnt too many times and being called this and that by a company that's so not hyperbolic, hypocritical. You know, Disney, a company that champion being progressive and, you know, all of this thing. You know, we've got John Boyega as our main lead in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, but we will also just completely downplay his character and his character arc in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, make him a completely passive, ridiculous character. And, you know, we'll take him off international posters in China because China don't like that. And we want to get China money. We've got the, you know, we've got a lesbian kiss scene at the end of Rise of Skywalker, but guess what? We're going to edit that scene out for China release. Like, they're so full of shit. They're so full of shit. You know, they're infinitely racist themselves, in my opinion, to even do that. But yet their Twitter account will be the first thing to call you racist if you just don't like Reva's character in Kenobi series. It's absolutely ridiculous, the world that we're currently living in. It really is. Carl says it was actually genius. It was actually genius marketing from Disney with labeling anyone who had criticism of the show with a label. It stopped some people from saying bad things about the show. Exactly. And, you know, I'm not going to go in depth onto it on this, but the same thing happened to me with the first teaser trailer rolled out for what you're watching right now, The Lord of the Rings on Prime. Cancel culture is a real thing. And by God, you can't have a diverse opinion. You know, they want diversity, but they don't want diversity in opinions. They very much want a dictatorship when it comes to opinions, just the woke crowd, and it is just infecting modern media as far as I'm concerned. It really is. Which is why, you know, I keep going to Top Gun, and, you know, there are probably other examples of it, but certainly in modern movie going experiences, I can't tell you how long it's been since I've felt those feelings at a film, where I've come out of a film and gone, fuck yes, that was one of the best films I've seen in years. Like, the way it made me feel, it got me pumped up, it got me inspired. And to me, that's what filmmaking should be. That's what film should be. It's escapism, especially of that genre. It's what escapism should be. Just, you know, it was the right film at the right time. No bullshit, no agenda stuff in there. It was a really fucking well-made film. The action was incredible, released at the right time, and was just an ultimate big screen cinema going experience. And that's what you want. Well, that's what I want. As you know, that's why I enjoy going to the movies. I don't want to be lectured at. I don't want to just see the fabric, like the seams in it, like, oh, we've had to put this in the film because of X, Y, and Z, because it's a focus group, because this sells well, because it's palatable, because it's marketable, because it's progressive. Like, I don't want that from my movies, you know, unless you legitimately have a message about that, and, you know, it's handled with tact, and it's well written, and it's mature enough, and that is like the crux of the film itself. That's absolutely fine. I'm not saying you can't talk about these issues in films, but just when you can see just how, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh God, I forgot the word. Disingenuous. That's the word I'm looking for. Just how manufactured, that's the word I was looking for. How manufactured and disingenuous everything is, that it's all done just to make money. You know, it's not done based on like personal opinions of the actual company, because the actual company themselves is as fucking corrupt as anyone. Anyway, I agree, Cole. Well said, Nikki. You can stick around. It just looks like, Nikki, you've subscribed to the channel as well, so thank you very much for subscribing. I do really, really appreciate that. And you've somewhat enjoyed hearing me prattle on for over an hour so far on 37 seconds of a Lord of the Rings trailer. We will be getting back to the trailer presently, I do promise, but as I say, I'm enjoying the conversation. This is why I enjoy going live. This is why I want to do this, and, you know, why I check in with you guys. Nikki says, as a woman, a strong mother and wife, it is downright insulting, honestly. Absolutely. And I really hope that, you know, studios look at Top Gun and don't just go, we want a Top Gun 3. I hope they legitimately look at that and go, right, what was in that movie that made it different from everything else? Let's make more movies like that. I do think we need a return to form for movies like, because it just feels like everything now you're getting lectured at with everything. And it's just, I think what it is with Lord of the Rings, and kind of going back to what you said earlier, Nikki, about this kind of being, you know, don't fuck with Tolkien. You've messed with all of these other franchises. We've seen all of these prolific franchises crash and burn due to wokeness. Tolkien is a step too far. You don't fuck with Tolkien. Like, the guy's life's work that, you know, magnanimously regarded in the literature community, what it did for fantasy, what it did for literature, and what it continues to do. I believe it's the second best-selling or most read book after the goddamn Bible. The fact that it was written so much as a mythology, like Tolkien felt so, you know, there's historical context to it as well. Tolkien felt so passionate that England didn't have a mythology, and that, you know, any mythology that England would have had at some point would have been eradicated by the Norman invasion. You know, things that we consider to be very British in terms of our legends and everything, like, you know, King Arthur and the Round Table, actually very much have a French connection. And there's lots of ties to French kind of folklore and mythology when it comes to the King Arthur stuff. And obviously we've repurposed that and taken it from that, but it's inherently French. England didn't have a mythology, and if we did, it was lost to time. Tolkien wanted to change that. And, you know, by taking Germanic and Norse mythology, you know, there's elements of Irish mythology in there too. You know, his own, you know, he's a devout Catholic as well. The Silmarillion very much reads like the Bible, and there are so many parallels that you can draw to a lot of the stories in the Silmarillion that are very much inspired by the Bible itself. So it's kind of like this mishmash. The whole Ainur and the council of the Ainur, and how you've got like a god of the seas and a god of the air and everything like that. That's very Greek mythology. So he's kind of taken all these elements from what we know and made it his own. That the world of Tolkien and Middle Earth and, you know, Arda, not just Middle Earth, which is just a small fraction of the map, the world of Arda itself, is this huge. It feels as real as our world. When you read it, it feels like it could be our mythology, because Tolkien, for like over 20 plus years, well, way before that actually, because the sort of like the early seeds of his mythology, he was writing in notebooks when he was in the trenches during the Battle of the Somme. And indeed, he never even got to finish his mythology. He died before he could finish the Silmarillion. The world had become so big and so real, and there was infinite avenues that you had to go down, and you could never fill it all. It was another world. It was an impossible. It was literally an infinite task that obviously he passed away before even the Silmarillion was published, and then his son Christopher Tolkien published it in the 70s. Thankfully, I mean, honestly, like, I love The Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit's my favorite book of all time, just because of how charming and, you know, whimsical it is and episodic. And the simplicity of The Hobbit is just absolutely wonderful to me. But I actually prefer the Silmarillion to the Lord of the Rings. The imagery and everything that's, pardon me, in the Silmarillion is just mind blowing. And just the fact that guy wrote it as an English mythology, and then just to see it kind of be twisted into what you see before you, just for profit, you know, just because it's an IP. It's the Lord of the Rings, you know, how many Oscars it won, you know, come Return of the King, and how lauded it is. It's like, right, what IP haven't we touched in a while? Oh, Lord of the Rings, let's take that. It's not on to me. And, you know, Tolkien fans just die hard, you know, because it's got that ties to the novels as well. It's got that tied to the man himself, J.R.R. Tolkien, and, you know, his blood, sweat, and tears into creating that world, that I think we do hold it near and dear. And it kind of does, you know. I mean, I'm an atheist, but it does like very much have a spiritual quality. And I think there are so many themes within Tolkien's works that, you know, you can extrapolate into your everyday as well. Like the thematic material within it, you can apply to yourself. You know, the thing is, like, if they touch on racism in Lord of the Rings, I don't need to be shown that through the color of people's skin. You know, if they're, you know, dwarves or elves or whatnot, you get that from just them being elves and dwarves, you know, because you get the themes of that and you can extrapolate that. And I know I'm kind of going off on like a tangent with this, and I do want to bring it back to the trailer, but I'm kind of like, you know, snowballing right now with all of my thoughts and everything. But what makes me laugh it is just the concept of, I want to be represented in just representation in general in films. And the massive push for it now, because as I say, like when Lord of the Rings came out, that wasn't a fucking problem. Apparently, everyone went to see Lord of the Rings. Everyone fucking loved Lord of the Rings. It made all of the money. It won all of the Oscars, and it's loved by people 2 decades later. So where has this sudden rush come from? That, oh no, we need to have dwarves of color. We need to have elves of color. We need to have this. You know, we need to have Lenny Henry as a Hobbit. And all, like, where's all this come from? And the thing is, as well, like this whole representation thing, it feels so narcissistic to me, because it feels like, I can't enjoy this product, I can't connect to this character, I can't connect to this world unless I see someone in this show who looks like me, who sounds like me, who is everything like me. I want to see myself projected onto this camera into this world. How fucking narcissistic is that? And to me, it just shows a lack of imagination in everyone. You know, can't you just watch something as a film, you know, doing its own thing as a film, as its own race of characters? You know, I can watch anything. Like, let's stick with Lord of the Rings for right now. Why not? I can watch, you know, Eowyn. Now, I'm not a woman, so does that mean I can't like her character? I can't like Eowyn's character unless I'm a blonde woman. You know what I mean? Like, no, I still admire her courage and, you know, standing up to what she believed in, and, you know, being on the front lines of the battle and killing the Witch King, and, you know, devoted wife to Faramir and everything like that. No, of course I can still like that. I can still like her character, being inspired by her character. If you're a woman, does that mean you can't like the character of Aragorn because you're not a bearded, rugged man? Viggo Mortensen, like, oh, what a man, he is the manliest of men. But you can't like him because you're a woman. So because you don't see yourself in that character, you can't connect to that character and his trials and tribulations and what he's trying to go through. and his strength and courage and devotion to the Fellowship and devotion to Arwen, you can't like his character. So does that go to say that any person of any nationality, of any color, race, gender, or creed can't like the Lord of the Rings because there's not a black dwarf in there or a black elf? You can't like Legolas because he's not played by a black actor. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you extrapolate it to that, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's just pure narcissism. I don't get that, Like, the whole thing of, we want more roles for women in Hollywood. Absolutely fair play. Completely agree with that. We want more roles for, black actors, for Asian actors, whichever walk of life. Absolutely. And there was room to do that within this show and stay true to the law. That's what I'm saying, But hey, this is a really good conversation, guys. So thank you for tonight. This has been really, really cool. I didn't expect that I'd be on for this long. I really didn't. But I hope you can tell that I'm passionate about this, and this is really cool. I'm loving this conversation. More of these, please. I'd love this. Nikki says, don't worry, you're not the racist or misogynist. They legit think women have to be like men to be taken seriously. Yeah, it's just, that came from their brains, not yours. Exactly. And this is the thing, like, I mean, I don't want to go into it, but I was cancelled off a previous channel, a channel that I was on for 7 years, and that I created in the first place. I was cancelled for basically voicing exactly the same opinions that I'm voicing to you guys right now. And I hope you can tell from me as a person, and I mean, if you have been watching me for a long time, or even if you haven't, like, I hope you know that I'm none of those things. I hate misogyny. I hate racism. It's absolutely fucking diabolical, and it should be stopped. None of what I'm saying, I hope, and here's the thing: if you construe it that way, then I'm sorry, but I don't intend it to be that way. My criticisms, as I mentioned, from this are really from the adaptation and from a law standpoint, from Tolkien's law, and just kind of the way they're handling it as well. He says, no problem. Love the conversation. Going to sign into the kids' account and sub from there too. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. I'm going to have to go live more now. Carl and Nikki, join my live streams more. This is really fun. We should do this more. Nikki says, I am a brand new Tolkien fan, so I'm a newborn in this realm. I fled from Star Wars and Star Trek to here. Thing is about Tolkien is the world is so huge. It will take me decades to take it all in. Absolutely. And here's the thing, like, there are channels out there, I mean, some of these have unfortunately become shills, and it has kind of like held the mirror up to the lengths that some people are willing to go to just to get subscribers and just to get early screeners for Amazon. But, good channels that I'd recommend if you want to get steeped in this world and learn more about the world itself. Nerd of the Rings is a great channel. Men of the West is fantastic. A channel that I collaborated with, actually, and I'd love to do another collaboration if they're down for it at some point, is the Dork Lords. They go into they review all kinds of stuff, but they've done, Lord of the Rings lore videos, which is a really good channel. Let's see what else. Did they call it the Broken Sword? They did start out with another name, but I think they changed their name to the Broken Sword. There's a bunch of different channels out there, so if you do want to learn more about this lore, and here's the thing, like, I've read Silmarillion 3 times, I've read The Hobbit hundreds of times, my book's falling apart. The Lord of the Rings from beginning to end, I've probably read it about 3 or 4 times. I've read Unfinished Tales, and I've gone through, I own all 12 volumes of the History of Middle-earth. Haven't touched those yet because it's very demanding reading. That goes into kind of the behind the scenes and how Tolkien developed all of his world, from his notebook in the trenches, the Book of Lost Tales, and then his initial ideas for the Lord of the Rings and how it grew and developed. So yeah, I'm a Tolkien fan, but I bet I don't even know 10% of the stuff, The Silmarillion is a book that you need to read about, probably 50 to 100 times before it all sinks in. It's so dense. There's so many characters, so many family trees and events, and names and place names you've got to remember. That I haven't taken it all in. I feel like I can hold my own in a Lord of the Rings lore discussion. I know kind of the broad strokes of things. Some things I know more intimately and a bit more specific, but yeah, Christ, that's not. I couldn't tell you everything, and hopefully I will one day. You know, I'd love to be a Tolkien scholar in that way. But I guess welcome to the family. You know, welcome to the Tolkien family. There's plenty of material here. So yeah, hope you have fun with it. Carl says brands are scared of backlash on Twitter and bad press. They make these changes to keep the mob at bay. Damn right, and we've seen that mob in full effect, haven't we? You know, maybe they'll come for me on this one as well, but bring it on. I'm ready because, you know, I've got opinions that I have on this. I'm allowed to have my opinions. I don't think I've been a dick about my opinions. And as I said, if someone disagrees with me, that's totally fine as well, as long as you can back up your argument and be prepared to have an adult conversation about it where you don't block anyone or shout over anyone and, you know, actually have a friendly differing opinion debate. It's all good. It's all good. You know, discussion and discourse is what makes the world go round. Nikki says, Nerd of the Rings and Men of the West are the ones I watch. Are the ones I watch. I can't get my words out today. I'm going to have a drink of water, actually. Before I read the rest of your comment, I'm going to have a drink of water. Talk amongst yourselves. Right, I'm going to try that comment again. Nerd of the Rings and Men of the West are the ones I watch. Really like this community. Everyone is so eager to inform newcomers. Yeah, and this is the thing that's kind of breaking my heart, right? We've seen the Star Wars community, right? And the Star Wars community has kind of always been at each other's throats, but definitely now there is very much a divide in the fan base. And I'd say that divide was kind of created with The Last Jedi. Maybe you could argue that there was some elements of it from The Force Awakens, because I didn't like The Force Awakens when it came out. I fucking hated that film and knew something was up from the start. But it was really The Last Jedi that I think you really did start to see that divide in the fan base and, you know, getting called this, getting called that. Disney kind of railing against their own fans and talking to the ones that are keeping their lights on, essentially, and, you know, consuming their product, calling them this and that. It actually kind of makes me want to boycott Disney from all of the horrible words they've been calling their fans who disagree with it. And I've seen that in the Star Wars community, and that's kind of why I'm just done with Star Wars now. I just don't think the material that we've got from Star Wars has been good. I think it's kind of tarnishing the originals and the legacy of George Lucas. And it's just a horrible atmosphere to be in with its fans. I'd say actually the best community of fans, even better than Lord of the Rings to me, is the James Bond community. I've absolutely loved speaking to everyone that I have done in the James Bond community. There are some absolutely ridiculous and silly James Bond films. There are some fantastic ones, and there's room for all of it. You know, there's room for discussion. If you have an opinion that's completely out there, everyone's really open to it because they just love James Bond and they take the wacky with the serious. And it's a really, really nice, warm, welcoming community I've found with the Bond community. But I fear that Lord of the Rings is going to go the same way. You know, once you start getting on Amazon Prime people talking out against this shit, it's going to be racist, misogynist, people who aren't progressive, you know, you're this, you're that. And you're going to see that divide in the Tolkien fan base. But I really, really hope that the diehard, the Tolkien purists, the people that respect Tolkien's work deeply and, you know, the themes of his work and good adaptation, you know, they're the ones leaving the dislikes. They're the ones letting their voice be heard, that aren't afraid to have their voice be heard, that are commenting that, you know, that line, evil cannot create, it can only corrupt and destroy. You know, they're the ones. And as long as there are people around like that, then it will give me hope. Nikki says, Carl says, I need to go as I have work in the morning, but we'll watch the rest of the video tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the conversation and nice to meet you, Nikki. Thanks for tuning in, man. As always, you're like the most devoted viewer I know. You're always in the chat, so thank you very much for tuning in, Carl. And yeah, go get some sleep, man, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Or just if you watch the video, just drop a comment, and of course I'll get a reply to you. Nikki says, Twitter is not reality. Oh my God, I hate this timeline. I remember being so excited, smiling so bright, going to see The Force Awakens. Not a third of the way through, I felt it. I knew, and so did my husband. Yeah. I can always tell. That's the thing. Like, I can always tell, and I know it's like I need to stick with this film. You know, maybe it will change my mind, but if it stinks, it's probably shit. You know, and it was. And I just remember, you know, credits hit on Force Awakens, and I was like, huh. I didn't like that movie. And yeah, you just know, don't you? You just know. Anyway, let's continue with the trailer. We do need to power on because I'm just a bit conscious of time. So we've got our Harfoot.
We're safe.
Harfoot. They didn't put Lenny Henry in the trailer. Do you remember that from the previous when he's like, the skies are strange, and Lenny Henry looks like some crazy weird hobo character, and I'm like, it's not the Hobbits, it's not the Harfoots. Like, come on. Let's continue. So this is the comet. I mean, this was all over like the previous teaser. It was, all of these kingdoms. It actually reminds me of the beginning of Game of Thrones season 2, and I mean, this was in the book as well. And I think there's a red comet in that, isn't there? And I remember this red comet kind of connects everyone within the world. You've got the people in King's Landing looking at this comet. You've got Daenerys over in Pentos. I think she was in Pentos at the time. I can't remember. Looking at this red comet in the sky. And it kind of connected everyone. Geopolitically, you could argue that it foreshadowed something as well. But with this one, we know that the comet is a guy. It looks like this, tall, thin, bearded guy. A lot of people are saying it's Gandalf. Why Gandalf is crashing to Earth like a fucking transformer in a meteorite, I have no idea, because that's not how the Astari arrived in Middle-earth at all. I don't know who. There's no one in the lore that crash landed to Middle-earth in a fucking comet. I don't know who it is. And if it is Gandalf, why is Gandalf in this? Is it like the Hobbit thing? It's like, well, it can't be Lord of the Rings unless you have Gandalf in there because he's a recognizable name, he's a recognizable face. If it's Gandalf, that just fucks with the lore so much, because that is not how the Istari arrived at Middle-earth at all. The fact of anyone crash landing to Middle-earth in a comet is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Anyway, let's continue. Oh, that's a laugh there. Based on... Here we go. So we've got hang on, if I pause it, why isn't my mouse working? You have fought Long Galadriel. So again, you see, I thought this was the Hel Caraxe, and it kind of looks like it. It's the grinding ice. It's them traveling. But as I said, that previous shot, because it looks like they're in the same outfits as well, like the white robes, and that's what they kind of looked like they were walking in from that overhead shot over the mountain. But that did look more like the Misty Mountains to me. I could be wrong, but if it's the Hel Caraxe, then cool. But they're going to be fucking with the lore. And short-haired elves as well. What the fuck is that shit? Like, elves have long hair. Like, come on.
Put up your sword.
This is Elrond, and he's saying to Galadriel to like put up her sword. Elrond would never say that. Elrond's gone to battle. Celeborn's gone to battle. Gil-Galad. Galadriel doesn't fucking go to battle. I'm sorry, guys. She doesn't. That's not me saying that women are weak. Galadriel doesn't fucking do battle, and it's so frustrating. Now, does Galadriel get stuck in? Is Galadriel infinitely powerful? Fuck yes, she is. During the course of the events of The Lord of the Rings, I mean, you don't see this in the films. She used her ring of power to completely level Dol Guldur to the ground. She raised it to the ground with her magic. That's incredible. Together with the White Council, she pushed back Sauron, the Necromancer. Now, in the film, she didn't do it single-handedly. Again, I didn't like that in the Hobbit film, where it was like all of them were weak and powerless, and then Galadriel's the sole one that banishes Sauron. She wouldn't be powerful enough to do that. In the book, it's Saruman. There's a line in the Fellowship of the Ring book where Gandalf says, by the devices of Saruman was Sauron banished, or something like that, I think he said. Or the Necromancer was driven out of Dol Guldur. So it was like a combined effort from all of the White Council, but it was specifically Saruman, who is on the same power level as Sauron at that point, maybe even a little bit more powerful than Sauron, because Sauron was kind of weakened at that point and not at full strength. So they were kind of toying with that, even with the Hobbit films, which were elements I wasn't keen on. But the fact that Elrond's going through and is like, Galadriel, put up your sword. You are so stunning and brave. It's like, fuck off. So let me just go through some more. Nikki says, I swear to gosh, if that is Gandalf, Picard facepalm. Yep. See, I'm not a Trekkie and I even know what that meme is. I appreciate that. It's totally going to be Gandalf. Yeah. Gandalf didn't come till the Third Age, even though I know that the Blues are there, but they traveled east. Yeah, I think I don't think Tolkien was ever kind of concrete on what he wrote. I think there are two different accounts of what happened. So originally I heard that the Blue Wizards arrived on their own first in the Second Age and went east. And then you had Saruman, Radagast, and Gandalf that followed separately. Saruman then went into the east, I think. And then, Galadriel and Radagast did their own thing. So there's that tale. And then I've heard that there's another one where all five arrive at the same time. Saruman leaves with the two Blue Wizards and then arrives back, and nothing's ever heard again of the Blue Wizards. I've heard rumors, and theories. It's like, because this is what's kind of fascinating as well. Like, we don't know much about the Blue Wizards, which is kind of frustrating because I really want to know more about the Blue Wizards. But it's also kind of cool that even within Tolkien's, secondary world, there are still kind of myths and legends and hearsay within the world itself. Tom Bombadil being the best example of that. A character that was intentionally written to be so mysterious and so enigmatic that we don't really know anything about him, and his history is very conflicting, and you kind of go down one rabbit hole of thought and you think you've got it made, and then Tolkien wrote a letter that contradicts that. So I kind of like that the Blue Wizards are vague, but this is what I mean. If you were going to flesh out some of this stuff, show us the Blue Wizards. Let's do it. I'm ready to see more wizards. I think there are conflicting things about that as well, that Tolkien said in a letter that the Blue Wizards either founded kind of evil cults of themselves in magic and formed cults and everything, which is pretty cool. And then there's another argument that maybe they actually did play a pivotal role in the War of the Ring and actually repelled and fought against a lot of Sauron's forces from the east. And if they hadn't have repelled that level of force, then if that force had swept across from the east and attacked from there, the chances are the tide of the War of the Ring could have gone in Sauron's favor. So the Blue Wizards were kind of elemental in that part. I actually kind of like the idea that they did fail and that they did form sort of secret magic cults and wanted to sort of rule as leaders of people in their own way in the East. The reason being is I like that each of the Astari failed in some kind of way, but Gandalf was the one who actually got the mission done. I really, really like that. Saruman, obviously, if you've seen the films, if you've read the books, he's not a good dude. He's out for his own ends. He's his own force. He wants to have ultimate power, and he fell from the graces of the council. If you go with that theory that the Blue Wizards kind of turned evil and just got obsessed with their own magic ability and, leading a cult of people, they fell from their task. And then Radagast, while not necessarily a bad dude, he just kind of became focused on the flora and fauna of Middle-earth. And was just concerning himself with nature. He didn't concern himself with the greater politics of the world or the peoples of Middle-earth. He was there just for the animals and the plants and everything, which is the task he was assigned, because Yavanna, who's basically Mother Nature, picked him out and said, I want you to look after the plants and animals. So if anything, he stays true to his task. But if you're looking in terms of actually helping the free peoples of Middle-earth and sort of guiding them, ushering them along to a better tomorrow, he couldn't care less. So in a way, he kind of failed the people of Middle-earth. But I like that. The theory that I go with is that Gandalf was the sole one that accomplished it. But yeah, the opportunity, let's see more of this stuff that Tolkien didn't write about, because then you could go nuts. You could cut away to the Easterlings and let's see a culture of the Easterlings. Let's see a culture of the Haradrim. Let's see the Woses. Let's see the Blue Wizards and all these wonderful things. Let's see the Corsairs of Umbar. I want to see all of these places that weren't shown all that much, Nikki says, mess around with the Blue Wizards all you want. Heck, I encourage it, but they won't, because they don't have any member berries attached to them. 100%. Exactly. And, member berries sell. You're going to get the sea lion clapping normies. And I hate to say normies because it feels so elitist, and it kind of is. I'm a Tolkien fan. I'm a Tolkien purist, and we do have a little bit of an ego. I do apologize. But you're going to have people going oh my God, it's Galadriel. Oh my God, Gandalf. I remember those characters. Woo, hobbits. And don't you just find people like that exhausting? Anyway, let's get back to the trailer. Let's power through. Come on. So we're kind of on the river here in a storm, and I know that there's been a scene released of Galadriel. There's like a man character, like a new rugged male character, and he's kind of cast adrift on a shipwreck. And Galadriel's there saving him, and it's like, why is she never went to Numenor? Why is she on the seas here? Like, didn't happen. Creating things out of whole cloth for no reason. This looks like the snowy cave to me, and I know that this is where we saw this in the previous trailer, this is where they confront the snow troll, so, you know, I'm guessing this is just part of their crossing over the ice for whatever reason. This is either them passing from Valinor, you know, across the, you know, Helcaraxe into Middle-earth, or for some reason they're just crossing and going through the Misty Mountains, and we've got trolls in there. Like, I don't know. With it being a snow troll, I would assume that it's the far north, so it could be the Helcaraxe, but as I say, they're just kind of they're playing fast and loose with the source material. Like, your guess is as good as mine at this point. So this is Numenor. As I say, it looks fine. You know, conceptually, that looks fine to me as Numenor. You know, you got the harbors, and it's, you know, seafaring people and whatnot. You got the tall towers and everything. Sure, why not?
It is over.
You
Elrond again.
have not seen what I've seen.
I have seen my share.
You have not seen.
Here we go. So, like, she's saying, like, oh, Elrond, you're not as good as me because you haven't gone through as much stuff as I have. And I'm like, well, if you know Elrond's upbringing, that dude has gone through a whole fucking lot. So, I mean, this scene here, is probably the one that I'm most interested about. You know, I didn't watch this trailer before, you know, doing the live reaction for you guys, but I did see some screenshots and everything, and it was kind of like of this glowing red apocalypse, really. That's what it kind of looks like. We've got suited and booted Arwen, we've got suited and booted Galadriel here for some reason, you know, covered in ash and fire. And then we've got like all of these floating elves with like spears, and it almost looks like Dante's Inferno, doesn't it? It always looks like falling into the pits of hell. It's a very striking image, and I think it looks really cool. I don't know what it is. In terms of what Galadriel could have gone through, I mean, there's the War of Wrath that it could be, which was, you know, like this really biblical, literally changed the entire face and geography of the world due to the amount of wars that happened at that point. It could be the Dagor Bragollach, the Battle of, what's it called? The Battle of Fire. Oh my God, why am I forgetting the name? I've got it. Sorry, guys, I've got to check this. I know it by the Dagor Bragollach, but I always forget what it translates. Sudden Flame. The Sudden Flame. That's it. The Battle of Sudden Flame, where Morgoth released his forces and Glaurung the dragon. He was very premature, though, when he released these creatures, and they absolutely, I mean, it was devastating for the elves at the time. All of them were kind of cut off from each other, and they suffered significant losses, but were, you know, eventually pushed back into Angband. It could be that could be Angband. You know, it looks like some kind of evil tower. It very much looks almost like the Eye of Sauron, which of course I know that it can't be. But I'm just trying to think of anything that Galadriel could be talking about. Like, you haven't seen what I've seen. Was she around at the... no, she wasn't around. The elves hadn't been born at the time of the lamps. I think the year of the lamps. It was the year of the trees when the elves kind of first came into being, I think. So I don't know what this could be. It looks cool. As I say, like, a lot of this looks very much like eye candy, but it's just in terms of what they're actually doing with the lore. I think this is going to be in some kind of flashback sequence or maybe a prologue, because it looks very stylized, you know, just how it looks. You've got people floating and everything like that. Yeah.
What I have seen.
But yeah, just Galadriel saying, like, shut up, Elrond, you're not as good as me. I am the strong, independent woman here. Keep the focus on me. We can't have Elrond be strong or, you know, show military prowess in his own way, which of course he could. What you've gone through in your life is nothing compared to what I've gone through. The spotlight's on me, Elrond. Thank you very much. Oh, this September, mark your calendars, everyone. Yeah, so this is a continuation of this first shot here, I think, and I'm not going to click it again because I'll lose my space, but where you see that ship kind of sailing through the rocks, it's probably just going to be our first establishing shot of Numenor, I would imagine. Yeah, here we go. You know, giant statues, everything. Like, it looks fine. You know, you've got all the ships, you've got the wharfs, you've got the docks and the harbors and everything. Conceptually, you know, it's Numenor at the height of its power, isn't it? And I assume, again, this is me bringing lore material into it. It could be completely different. You're going to see, you know, this kingdom of Numenor rise and eventually fall in probably a not very so accurate telling of the story. The legend begins. So this is Gil-Galad right here in probably a very, I mean, it looked to me, a lot of the costumes in this just look like a really bad cosplay. But we've got Lindon here, and you know, Lindon looks nice as a place. I hope they do Gil-Galad justice. I really, really do, because you know, he's one of the most prolific elves in all of the ages, really. Well, certainly up until the Second Age, because then obviously he was killed. Peter Jackson actually shot that scene, believe it or not, because Gil-Galad is in the film. He is in the Fellowship of the Ring film. Unfortunately, the film that you see currently, even in the extended edition, he gets a 2-second cameo where you see him stab this. He like goes like and like stabs this spear into an orc at the Battle of Dagorlad at the beginning of the prologue of Fellowship of the Ring. But a lot more was filmed with that actor and of Gil-Galad, and they did originally shoot his death scene. In the film, you see King Elendil get killed by Sauron, you know, when Sauron's just swinging his mace back and forth and smacks the shit out of Elendil. Like, Elendil did die in the book as well, but also Gil-Galad died as well. So not only the men suffered a great loss with the death of their king, but also, you know, Gil-Galad, who was the High King of the Noldor, was killed at that point. And they filmed it. Sauron, the storyboards for it, and they shot it. Sauron picks him up by the throat and literally burns him alive. Like, with his magic power, Sauron picks him up and burns him alive into just utter ash. That would have been so cool to have seen. And I know that Gil-Galad, like, the character itself, doesn't play a massive part in the Lord of the Rings itself. And maybe they thought that it was too much baggage and that you didn't need that information in there. But the fact that they shot it, I would love to see that footage at some point. I think everyone does. Anyone who likes those films, you know that there's countless amounts of footage and deleted scene that we've seen in trailers, that we've seen in behind the scenes, that is out there, that is in a vault somewhere, that I really hope sees the light of day at one point. And I actually think that if they'd have kept that in, where Sauron picks up Gil-Galad and just burns him alive, that the scene where he approaches Isildur with an outstretched hand would have made a lot more sense, because you kind of watch it now and think, well, he's got a giant mace, why wouldn't he just like swing it down and crush Isildur? But he kind of approaches him up close with his hand outstretched, and if we'd have had that scene where he literally sort of, you know, reached out, grabbed Gil-Galad and burnt him alive, you could then assume that he was going to try and do the same with Isildur before Isildur, you know, cut the ring off Sauron's hand. But Nikki says, oh yeah, everything will look nice. Even Picard looked good visually, but the writing will be piss poor and uninspiring. Absolutely. And I'm kind of getting that impression from this trailer, to be honest.
Over the face of the earth.
I still can't believe that that's Elrond. That's our fucking Elrond right there. What is going on with the short-haired elves? I don't get it. You know, speakers are fine. Like, you know, Gil-Galad right there looks like an elf.
Face of the earth.
But what's this fixation with the short head elf? I just don't get it. Just conceptually, I don't get it. These are orcs right here. I honestly can't see. Yeah, I'm seeing the headgear and the bones and everything. This looks like it's an army of orcs marching right here. But, you know, the orcs look fine.
Will be the end, not just of our.
So we've got this shot right here too. I don't know where this could be. So you've got Galadriel on boat. It's a swan boat. So this is in Valinor. You've obviously got the heavenly light. The way that it's kind of shot as well does look very heavenly. It does look very digital, doesn't it? It does look very fakey fake, but I kind of like the otherworldly quality that is shown with Valinor. I'll say that. It reminds me of a film, actually, and it kind of reminds me of The Fountain a little bit with Hugh Jackman, the Darren Aronofsky movie. But there's another film that I'm forgetting, and if you know what it's called, then sound off in the comments. It's a Robin Williams film, and he kind of goes to the afterlife, and everything looks like a watercolor. Everything looks like an oil painting. Does anyone know the film that I'm talking about? I'm going to have to Google it because I can't believe I'm forgetting the name. Oh, What Dreams May Come. That's the film that I'm thinking of. How the cinematography of that does look very heavenly. It does look very otherworldly, and I kind of like that for Valinor. But I have no idea why Galadriel's on a fucking boat. Like at all. Because she didn't take a boat to get to Middle Earth. She crossed the Helcaraxe because of the kinslaying, because good old Feanor burnt all of the ships and killed all the people at Aquilonde. So she had to make the perilous crossing along with the rest of her people over the snowy mountains. So I guess there's just maybe she's just taking a boat trip in Valinor, you know. I guess good attention to detail that it's a swan boat, because that is kind of very much intrinsic to Valinor, and indeed elven culture, which itself was based on Valinor. I'm guessing there are a flock of swans. If there are a flock of swans flying in, that's kind of nice, but nevertheless the CGI does look very, very obvious. And then we get to Tar Miriel. And I think we've actually seen a picture of Ar-Pharazôn already, haven't we? I want to say, who is her devoted husband. Ar-Pharazôn, Ring of Power. I swear we've seen a picture of him already, haven't we? Have we seen a picture of him? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to Google this real quick so you guys can see. And again, this is what I mean, just playing fast and loose with the lore. Ar-Pharazôn, Rings of Power. I'm going to bring up a picture I'm going to show you guys. Where is he? This guy. So if I share screen, if I stop that screen share and I share this real quick. Ar-Pharazôn. So this is our Ar-Pharazôn, right? This guy is meant to be the cousin of Tar Miriel. This guy is meant to be the cousin of Tar Miriel. This guy. How many times do you want me to repeat this? For one, as well, Tar Miriel in this is, as far as I know, the queen of Numenor. And Ar-Pharazôn, at the moment at least, is serving as an advisor. He's an advisor to the queen, which is totally wrong. If you know anything about Tar Miriel, and I did a little bit of research to refresh myself, Tar Miriel was next in line to the throne. The rule of succession, as ruled by Tar Aldarion, I think his name was, stated that she would be queen. However, just as she was about to be queen, Ar-Pharazôn, her cousin, forcefully made her marry him so that he could be king of Numenor, because he wanted to rule. And Ar-Pharazôn, if you read the lore, basically led to Numenor's downfall. They became very prideful, very boastful, thought he was man enough to lead a conquest into Middle Earth, and he pretty much marched right up to the gates of Mordor and called Sauron out. They brought Sauron all the way back to Numenor. They imprisoned him, but then Sauron, through his cunning and deceit, got into the minds of the people of Numenor, turned them against each other and turned them against the gods, which led Numenor into a completely fruitless militaristic stance that they were going to actually... Because they were banned from sailing to Valinor. There was kind of like an unspoken barrier. You know, they could keep to their own lands, they could sail around, but they couldn't sail into the west. They weren't allowed. They were banished from it by the gods. And Sauron was basically saying to Ar-Pharazôn, you're not going to take this shit, are you? You're not going to be dictated by the gods. Your military power is more than enough to take on the gods of Valinor. So sail over there and kick their asses and conquer it. If you want it, go and conquer it. And, you know, being a very militaristic nation that Numenor was, completely boastful. They decided to sail over there and confront the gods. And Eru Iluvatar, who is God, he is the one, he is the creator of everything. He summons a wave. It's based on the Atlantis myth. Summons a great wave which completely decimates and sinks Numenor beneath the waves for good, killing all of its people, apart from the faithful who didn't want any part of fighting against the gods. And the wave pushed their ships because they decided to flee Numenor. The waves pushed their ships, which made them crash land on Middle Earth. And then from there, they eventually went on to form the provinces of, Minas Tirith and all the provinces of Gondor as we know it, Elendil and Isildur and whatnot. Let me just stop sharing. I'm going to answer your question there for a second, Nikki. Just bear with me. I'm a one-man team with this. Still working out the kinks. Let's go back to the trailer. There we go. So Nikki says, what caused the world to be curved? Yeah, so when it started out, the world was flat. So, Tolkien appeals to you flat earthers and your actual sensible people out there too. From my understanding, it was the War of Wrath. The War of Wrath was so... This is what I mean. I don't think you could do this on screen. It was so biblical that it completely changed the landscape, the land itself, earthquakes, tectonic shifts. All of the world was kind of changed from that. And I believe that the war was so powerful enough. I don't know how this is possible, but it happened. The war was so powerful that it caused the flat earth to become curved. I believe that's what it was. I could be wrong. So allow me to Google it. Tolkien, what caused to become round? I think it was that. I'm pretty sure. You know what? I'm going to say it's the War of Wrath, but I actually want to do some research on that. So don't take my word as gospel on that. Oh God, I wish I could Changing of the World. Here we go. The Changing of the World was the event in which Arda was transformed from a flat world into a round planet. It occurred the Second Age, 3,319, when Eru destroyed the island of Numenor. No, sorry, no, it is from the sinking of Numenor. The world was curved. I guess so it'd be more difficult to get to Valinor so that no one would ever try it again. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I was totally wrong. It wasn't, this is what I say. I don't know my lore like the back of my hand just yet. No, it wasn't the War of Wrath. It was the sinking of Numenor that also, in the process, made the flat Earth become round. But yeah, Tar Miriel, as I said, is meant to be the daughter of Ar-Pharazôn. I mean, the actors between the two of them are just played by completely different races, so they can't in any way be related in that way. Tar Miriel apparently in this is like the queen, and Ar-Pharazôn is an advisor. Completely wrong, as I mentioned. Ar-Pharazôn forcibly made her marry him just as she was about to get the line of succession, just so that he could be king. And then he changed her name to, oh God, let me find it. One day, I swear, guys, I'm going to learn this like the back of my hand. Let me check it. Tar Miriel. And then he made her change her name. Made her change her name to Ar-Zimrafel. Yeah, he wasn't a nice dude, Ar-Pharazôn, but clearly we need more woman power in this, right? So we're going to have her be the queen. Law be damned. See, I thought it was the banishment of Morgoth. No, it wasn't that. Apparently, he was just kind of banished into the void, and that they didn't think anything of it after that. They put him in there. It's basically like the Phantom Zone, isn't it? In Superman, I guess they put him in there and was like, we don't need to worry about him now. How wrong they were. But anyway, let's continue with the trailer. I mean, this is just laughable at this point, isn't it? We've got more half-foots. We've got, these are either fireflies or it's the ashes of the comet coming down. So are they like witnessing God here? Is it like a spaceman came traveling, an alien crash lands to Earth, and it's actually Gandalf? It's absolutely stupid. This guy. Who is this guy? Are we saying Gandalf? Are we saying Radagast? Who are we saying? I think it's going to be Gandalf, personally. Let's continue. So, kind of cool. So we've got Elrond being led through, you know, dwarven realms. Again, though, looks very fakey fake, doesn't it? Like, nothing about it even screams that it's real, especially in this shot as well. I mean, look at that. You can almost see, like, the clipping around them on the bridge, you know? But, you know, if this is meant to be sort of, you know, Khazad-dûm back in the day, it looks kind of dwarven. I don't know why we've got all this greenery down here, because, you know, dwarves hate that shit. So, or do we think this is... I don't think it's an elven province, just looking at the architecture itself. It looks very squared off, you know, it looks very carved into the stone, you know, all these passageways, and the fact that you've got the dwarves leading Elrond through this place. I think this is probably going to be the bit that we saw in the first trailer, where Elrond's kind of like an emissary, and then he's brought before Dwarven Queen. What's her name? Disa. And then there's that kind of like sacred stone that they like worship in front of, or something like that. I'm guessing this is going to be tied to that. This is going to be some kind of ceremony or welcoming the elves there, or something like that. I'm not sure. Nikki says, I know, and I think it's a cool concept. The dwarves let sunlight into grow vegetation. See, I never thought of it in that way. And, you know, I guess you always wonder, like, well, what do dwarves eat? You know, because, you know, well, Gimli says, red meat of the bone. And then in the Hobbit films, they kind of screw their face up at salad, don't they? In the Hobbit films, where I know that the Hobbit films. God, I'm going Irish. The Hobbit films are quite ridiculous and more comedic, aren't they? And they say, like, where's the meat? And they're screwing their face up at the salad. Yeah, I guess I never really concerned myself what dwarves eat. I just always assumed they probably traded and grew livestock. I guess, I don't know. But, you know, maybe the dwarves have still got to have a balanced diet, so who knows? I just think, like, why have they got vegetation? Because they just have a love of the rock. You know, Gimli has no affinity for trees or nature. You know, case in point in the Lord of the Rings book, where, you know, Legolas is talking about the beauty of Fangorn, and how, you know, when all's said and done, he wants to take Gimli on a tour through Fangorn and explore some of the beauty of the trees and the history of it and everything. And Gimli's like, oh, well, I don't really want to do it, but if you want to do it, Legolas, then I'll agree to it, as long as you come to the Glittering Caves. And the way that Legolas talks about nature is really beautiful. You know, obviously he's an elf, he's of nature, he's born of nature, you know, trees and the history of them, and rivers, and the memory of song in all of these places, and the wealth of history to it. He's an elf, so, you know, he's more nature born. Whereas the dwarves literally were born from the stone. You know, that's another great story, is the birth of how the dwarves came into being, with Aule the smith, who Eru Ilúvatar said his firstborn was going to be the elves, his secondborn was going to be the men, but Aule grew impatient and he wanted to create his own beings, and he created the dwarves before the elves had even woken up. And Eru showed up and said that, like, these are an abomination. And Aule, in respect for Eru Ilúvatar, said, like, if my creations displease you, then I will destroy them. And he picks up a hammer and he goes to smite his creations and kill the dwarves. And the dwarves have, like, sentient thought and autonomous, and they cower in fear from their father, who's about to kill them. And just as he's about to do so, I mean, this is like the story of Abraham, you know, where he's got to sacrifice his son. Eru steps in and says, no, like, these have shown signs of life. You've shown your devotion. You're not going to kill them. I will grant them life, because I created everything. I created you, Aule. So you created these. You are a part of me. They are technically a part of me as well. They shall be the sons of my adoption. I'll grant them life, but I refuse to let them be born before the firstborn, which are the elves, and before the secondborn of the men. We've got to go into that. You know, I want my plan to be that plan. And then after that, they can be woken up. So bury them where you want to. They will sleep under the stones, under the mountains, under the rock. And when the time is right, I will grant them life and they will emerge from the stone, which is why dwarves are like really hardy because they are literally born of the living rock. They were created from stone. And, you know, as I say, like Legolas talks about forestry and nature in that way that he does. And then when Gimli talks about the glittering caves, he kind of has the same passion, but he's talking about stalagmites, stalactites, quartz, gems, stone, the way that it's carved into the stone. And he has that passion. He has a passion for like the inside of the mountain and the glittering caves. And he says to Legolas, like, look, if I agree to come to Fangorn, then you've got to accompany me through the glittering caves to take in that as well. And it's just that ultimate bromance, you know? And there you go, like racism between the races of the dwarves and the elves coming together, finding a common ground and forming the ultimate bromance, you know? And he says, you're right, that doesn't make sense. Dwarves eat meat off the bone. And love how Legolas was drinking beer with his homie. Great friendship. I mean, the friendship between Legolas and Gimli, it's easily one of my favorite couplings in not just the films but the books as well. The ultimate bromance. I love it so much. There's a moment in the Two Towers book where Éomer's talking to, and sadly this isn't in the film because it'd be a great moment, because they do the whole thing with Éomer being banished, which I actually really like in the film. I think it works well for adaptation. Éomer being banished and then coming back at the end, but Éomer's with them the whole time. He's not banished. And he goes up to Gimli and he says, like, dwarf, I would be honored if you accompany me and ride with me. And Gimli's like, yes, I will take you up on that offer, provided that Legolas can also ride beside me. My comrade Legolas can ride beside me. And I'm like, yes, I love it. I love seeing these two together. It's so great. And I'm geeking out about it even now. Let's continue.
I am sorry, but their time has come.
So this looks like a dwarf. You know? I mean, it's an obvious fake nose, but I appreciate it. Like, if you said to me, which race is that in Middle Earth? I'd say that it's a dwarf. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, so this kind of like sacred ceremony thing. This is apparently Durin the Fourth, and I want to say that the king that we see is Durin the Third, which again is completely just ruining the legacy and the lore of this, because none of the Durins existed at the same time. Durin is, you know, this lineage of the dwarves that dates back to one of the first forefathers of the dwarves, which was Durin the Deathless. And the dwarves believed that Durin would be reincarnated. The spirit of Durin would reincarnate throughout the ages as of the dwarves. So, of course, one Durin has to die before a Durin the Fourth can happen. Durin the Third has to die so that Durin the Fourth can be a thing, who has to die so that Durin the Fifth can be a thing. It's just really frustrating. Okay, let's continue. I don't know. This is some kind of ceremony. I mean, these look like dwarves. You know, these look like dwarves. More. I mean, this is like, you know, more crossing of the Helcaraxi right here, I think, maybe. But to me, this is just like aping off Game of Thrones right here, isn't it? This is just, you know, Jon Snow and Ygritte climbing over the wall. You know, it's kind of like it's the Red Letter Media thing, isn't it? It's like, you may not have noticed it, but your brain did. You're watching it, and if you're a fan of fantasy, chances are you've probably watched Game of Thrones before this. And if you enjoyed Game of Thrones, then they're throwing kind of similar iconography into it. You know, they might not be drawing like loads of references to it, but it's kind of subconsciously reminding you that I've seen something similar to this before, and it's Game of Thrones. It's the, you know, climbing the wall, isn't it? Like when I thought of climbing the Helcaraxi, you know, crossing, no, it's not even climbing, crossing the Helcaraxi, I didn't imagine this. I just imagined like really bad frozen tundra and having to like navigate grinding ice and, you know, icebergs and floating bits of ice and whatnot. I didn't imagine this. And especially like if you're going to do it, why the fuck are you doing it in plate armor? Why are you doing it in plate mail? Like, Galadriel is suited and booted during this scene, and it's just not proper clothes to like climb it. And also, like, the CGI to me just looks really fake in this scene, more so than any. Especially that like weird, awkward jump she did in the previous trailer. We've got this dude who's a dude. He's a manly dude, and I don't really have anything else to say about him. Very Game of Thrones from what I've seen from the pictures. Very modern. Nothing really screams Tolkien about him to me. I think this is a guy from Numenor, I think I've seen pictures, you know, I mean, Christ almighty, it looks like Jason and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in the background here, doesn't it? It looks like some kind of like hippie commune. What the fuck are they actually wearing? What are these costumes? So I think this is Numenor, I guess.
This with us all.
Oh, yeah. And we've got our new fictional elf character who's going to be in like a forbidden romance with a widow, you know, because we've got to have a forbidden love story in the thing that Tolkien didn't write about. You know, elves and men falling in love with each other. You know, this is... Doesn't it just take the shine away from stuff like Beren and Luthien and Aragorn and Arwen? If this shit happens all of the time, it just takes away from the special quality of those moments to me. It's why I hate the I hate the dwarf and elf romance stuff in The Hobbit, and I know that was a studio decision. Yeah, they were going to have like a strong, independent female elf character who isn't in the book in there, and I don't blame Evangeline Lilly for that. Evangeline Lilly's an incredible actress. They just didn't really do anything with Tariel's character. If they'd have made her a kind of like a love interest for Legolas, then maybe I could have swallowed that a little bit more than what they actually did in the film. But the whole thing with she's got to fall in love with the hot dwarf character, there was just nothing there. It was terrible. And I feel like this is kind of in the same, you know, similar boat to that. It's like, is this really necessary? And I'm sorry, but that's just not an elf. It isn't. Like, I'm sorry, like, bring the lore into it. It's not. I'm sorry, it isn't. You can disagree with me, but you know, what the fuck ever. Here we've got Joan of Arc, Galadriel leading a cavalry charge. Absolutely not in the lore under any circumstance. You know, this would be Celeborn, this would be Elrond. Galadriel doesn't do battle. You know, again, it's what we said earlier about feminine strength and masculine strength, and they're just, it's really lazy writing for Galadriel. To me, it does a disservice to her character and what her character stands for, and the strength that her character has, by just slapping her in plate mail and a broadsword and making her ride in a cavalry charge like Eowyn. It just completely dismantles the world, the society of the world. And as I say, kind of makes it problematic if you look at this in the grander scheme of the whole Middle-earth and Arda, because, you know, you go from women doing battle, and then apparently you get to the Third Age, and there's been like a massive sexist uprising in the Third Age of Middle-earth where women aren't allowed to do battle anymore. So yeah, it's just... But the thing is, like, it's by this point, it's so transparent. You can see what they're doing. And I think that's why people have had more of like a revulsion to this so far as well, is because, you know, we've seen this with Star Wars. We've seen this with Picard. We've seen this with Ghostbusters. We've seen this with countless things currently. And it's just so transparent. We know what they're doing. We know what they're trying to achieve with this. And it's just really lazy. And it's just downright laughable to me. Let's continue. So we've got some like Braveheart shots. We've got hugging hobbits. Yeah, this is the shipwreck scene I was talking about. Completely different one. So this is obviously Númenórean forces. So I'm guessing maybe there's some kind of... Is this two ships next to each other? It looks like they're kind of...
Move forward.
So this is going to be... Who is this? I don't know. It's just more Númenórean stuff, isn't it? That's it. I'm guessing this is Galadriel again, because, you know, they're really pushing Galadriel.
Or we die with it.
This is our Pharazôn. Oh my god, it's just terrible, isn't it? It's just terrible. What the fuck are these Númenóreans dressed as? I'm sorry, like, what the fuck is this? Like, this weird striped pinstripe thing that they're all wearing. Like, this just looks like an absolute hodgepodge. This doesn't look like the militaristic, proud warrior nation that Númenor is. Like, nothing within the garb or the architecture is really depicting this to me. This looks like the most Game of Thrones shot I think we've seen so far. This looks like something like fresh out of like Pentos or something like that from across the sea in Game of Thrones. You know, it's a real kind of, I say, like Middle Eastern vibes almost with the, I mean, it looks like a kind of bazaar, doesn't it, in terms of like the garb of everyone. That's kind of what I'm picking up from this. But everyone's just kind of mismatched, and it just looks like they've raided the wardrobe, and everyone's just kind of in different costumes and everything. It's just, I mean, it's just an absolute train wreck, isn't it? Okay, let's. We're almost done, guys. We're almost done. I just imagine him like, "Can you dig it? Can you dig it?" If anyone's seen The Warriors, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Generic Game of Thronesy warrior dude. This could be the beginning of a new era. Is it like, I don't know, is he talking to Elrond there at this ceremony, and he's talking about like dwarves and elves uniting? See, this scene's kind of interesting because I've seen a lot of people talk about this and thinking, is it the Oath of Feanor? So Feanor's sons all created an oath that they would try and reclaim the lost Silmarils at all costs under pain of death. It was their birthright, it was their family heirloom, and they would stop at nothing to get the Silmarils back. And there's a similar pose you can find. There's if you Google image the Oath of Feanor, I'm not going to share screen again just because I'm conscious of time. I'm just going to type it in real quick to see that if it comes up. There's like an artist rendition, Oath of Feanor. Yeah, it's like one of the first few images that comes up. If you type in Oath of Feanor into Google Images, there's a scene of like a crowd of elves kind of holding swords up aloft in a circular fashion, looking like they're swearing something, like almost like a round table kind of scenario. So, but again, I'm throwing stuff out from the lore, and we've seen how faithful they've been to the lore so far. So this could literally be anything. This could be fucking anything. I'm just drawing on what I know, and to me, this kind of looks like the Oath of Feanor and all of Feanor's sons. We got some. See, this is the kind of shit I hated in the Hobbit film. Like these weird. Look at the physics. Look at this jump. Look how terrible this jump looks from this elf character. Oh, well, I think he's an elf character, isn't he? I'm not sure, but he does this like weird fucking flip. Like, what's that about? It just looks so bad. But we've got wargs here, I guess. So this could be a werewolf. We've got this other character on the right-hand side here, which looks like some kind of pit where they'll be tortured. And I mean, that is in the Silmarillion. Sauron had pits with werewolves where I forgot the name of the character now. He died in a character's arms. I think it was the story. Was it Beren and Luthien? I think wasn't Beren imprisoned or something, and there was like a werewolf. So, I mean, if this is a werewolf, awesome, cool, but it wouldn't be under these circumstances. I'll just say that. It could just be a warg. This is the snow troll fight. You're gonna have like an action beat. This is Comic Guy. He kind of doesn't it remind you of the Terminator? You know, when Arnold Schwarzenegger of the T-1000 would touch down on Earth. They're kind of naked in that crouching pose, and the laser field that's around them creates like the earth to be scorched. I don't know. It's kind of reminding me of Terminator a little bit. It's like, why the fuck is this in my Middle Earth? Look at this shit. Look at this shit. We've got the more Hobbit walking. That's Lenny Henry leading the way. Why are Hobbits in the third age? Why are Hobbits in the second age? There we go. There's your wonderful trailer, The Rings of Power, September 2nd. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm not too jazzed about the good old Rings of Power. Now, will I be watching it? Out of choice, I wouldn't want to. But, you know, if you guys want to see me review it week to week and give my 2 cents on it and review it as we go along, suffer together, then let me know, and of course I'll do one. In my own time, I probably wouldn't, but as I say, for the channel, I know that I have kind of been picking and choosing things. I have been boycotting some things. Like I boycotted Kenobi just because I watched the condensed episodes. I saw everything they changed and how it was just an absolute betrayal of the canon and the way it was handled and everything. And also Disney's attitude towards its fans, calling people racist and misogynist and everything just because they didn't like the character. It didn't fly with me, so I kind of just chose not to watch it. And then also Thor Love and Thunder. I'm not a fan of funny Thor. I've heard that it feels like a film that's made by a 7-year-old. Just the humor's really dumb in there. And, you know, everything the film's pushing. So that's kind of... I don't want to take 2.5 hours, 3 hours out of my day to go to the cinema to watch a film that I know I'm probably going to hate. And granted, you know, I love jumping on here and I love talking about films with you and everything like that, but it's also like my free time now is precious, and I'd rather use that free time productively, you know, whether it's guitar practice, whether it's piano practice. I've got stuff I'm working towards, and I'd rather use that time to do that than, you know, busy myself at the cinema watching a film that I don't really want to watch in the first place. But you know, if you guys really want to hear me talk about stuff, then obviously do sound off in the comments as well. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. I'm just going to bring up the socials right now. This has been really, really fun tonight, and I have almost kind of broken even with the runtime that I went on my first live stream, which you will never see because it was cancelled. I spoke for about 2.5 hours on that on a 30-second trailer, and that was also a really great discussion. So for more of these, I want more of these discussions on these live streams and movie reviews or television reviews, whatever it happens to be. So it wasn't a Tolkien community. I'm not going to go into it completely in depth in here because it's, you know, it's in the past, it happened. I created, along with another co-host, eventually broadened to to a second co-host, so there was 3 of us in total, a film review channel. We also did TV shows and everything like that, and it was on the night of the Super Bowl when the teaser trailer went up for, you know, the first teaser trailer went up for The Rings of Power. This was a film channel that I created and that I've been a part of for 7 years. Loads of my free time, you know, in getting that off the ground and building that community. Wonderful community. I think we had close to like 2.9k subscribers, I think. So not an exhaustive amount, but a decent amount of subscribers. And I gave my thoughts on the teaser trailer for The Rings of Power. Basically everything I vocalized tonight. And I guess my co-host didn't enjoy that too much, and I was cancelled from the channel. I was locked out of the channel. Passwords were changed on me. I was locked out of the socials. I couldn't tell people where I was moving to. I couldn't argue my own case. I was called racist, misogynist publicly on their YouTube page. Content of mine, like my Hobbit fan edit, which, by the way, go and check out my Hobbit fan edit. It's in the description down below, links to find it. Were replaced with a Rickroll because, you know, Rickrolls are still relevant over 10+ years later. And yeah, that was my past with the channel that I'd been a part of, you know, with a couple of guys that you know, I considered friends, and that, as I say, I'd worked on it for 7 years with. So it's, you know, people show you who they truly are. You know, trial without jury, and you're lambasted all over the internet as all these horrible, hateful things, which hopefully by the end of this stream, I hope people don't think I am. You know, I've got my opinions on this, and it all comes from a place of love from Tolkien and the source material. All of the things, all of the agendas and everything that they've wanted to put into the show, there was a place to do that and do it in a more cohesive way, a way that feels more genuine to the actual lore, as I've discussed multiple times throughout this. But yeah, that's kind of what happened. So I was like, you know what? I want my own space. I want my own platform where I can voice my opinion. If people agree with it, fantastic. If they don't, then by all means, you're free to, you know, disagree with me, have an adult conversation about it. I'm not going to block you. I'm not going to, you know, cancel you just because you've got a different opinion to me. It's all good. Opinions make the world go round, you know, just be a fucking adult about it. Anyway, God, enough bitterness aside, let's move on. How dare you give your genuine opinion? Exactly. But it is what it is. You know, it is what it is. It's in the past. I'm happier on this platform. I can be myself. I can say what I want to, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's a lot more. It's a freer environment for sure. And I enjoy doing it. I don't do these videos all the time. You know, it's not like I work to some kind of schedule. I am back every Tuesday for another James Bond review, though. I will say that. So next Tuesday, watch out for that because it's a good one. It's A View to a Kill. It's one of my favorites. So I just kind of jump on here whenever there's a film out that I particularly want to see, that I'm passionate about, that I have thoughts on, that I want to share. And you can do no more than that, you know? So anyway, go and follow me on Twitter. I know that Twitter is like the lion's den, but fuck it, in for a penny, in for a pound. Go and follow me on Twitter. You can find me at Hobbit Fan Editor. That's at Hobbit Fan Editor. As I've mentioned, I do have links to my Hobbit Fan Edit in the description down below. A project that took me 8 years. and that I was very passionate about, and that was an absolute labor of love. You can check it out now. There's a few links to it there if you're a fan of Tolkien. And of course, if you haven't done so already and you're just discovering this after and you've managed to sit through 2 hours 15, Carl, I'm so sorry that you've got so much more to watch in the morning. Let me know what you think of the Rings of Power trailer. Are you on board for it? Do you think it looks fantastic? Are you kind of on the fence about it, still cautiously optimistic, or do you think it looks like the worst fucking thing ever? I'm open to all walks of opinions. Please do drop a comment and let's get a conversation going. Because yeah, it's all good. Very quickly, Nikki says, big question. Who was your favorite Bond? This is actually a question that I ask week to week. So I'm going to bring up some shameless plug right here. Nikki, maybe you're a Bond fan as well. If you are, I welcome you to join my review. That's going to be 11:30 p.m. British Standard Time on Tuesday. A View to a Kill. We're very much into 80s Bond right now. It's going to be Roger Moore's last one. We've got Christopher Walken. We've got Duran Duran. What more could you want? But in answer to your question, who is my favorite Bond? I'm going to answer this question in two ways. My favorite Bond performance is Timothy Dalton, License to Kill. That's my favorite Bond performance. If I had to pick one. But I can't say that Timothy Dalton is my favorite Bond overall because he only did 2 films. And as of right now, maybe, when I rewatch it in a couple of weeks' time, Living Daylights will go up in my estimations. I'm not keen on Living Daylights as a film. So I only really like one of the 2 Timothy Dalton films. And that License to Kill is my favorite Bond film of all time. But in sheer sort of how many he did and how much I enjoy those films and how romantic and suave he is, it's Roger Moore. There's just an undefinable charm about Roger Moore. Like, he is Bond. He can do the fun stuff. He can show a darker side to Bond. He's really got it all, and he just looks like he was having a great time doing it. The Roger Moore era of Bond films are so much fun, and I'm enjoying them. And as I say, next week, A View to a Kill, it's going to go out on a bang, and I'm really looking forward to it. So, yeah, Timothy Dalton, best Bond performance, License to Kill for me. But my favorite Bond, because he did the most amount of films, and a lot of those films are fantastic. It's Roger Moore, undoubtedly. But yeah, that'll do it for my very, very lengthy trailer discussion on the Rings of Power. What was this thing called? Main teaser trailer, whatever it was. Massive thank you to everyone that's tuned in and been watching for hours upon hours. You guys are amazing, and thank you for a wonderful discussion tonight as well. This has really made my night. This has been fantastic. So thank you. Hope you all have a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, whatever time it is that you're watching this thing, and I'll catch you on the next one. So thank you very much, guys.